All right, Casey, today, and actually for quite a while, I've been flying a red-tailed hawk for the first time in a while. And when I pull that big girl out, everybody's eyeing the gear up. And first and foremost, they see those sexy little squirrel chaps that she's wearing.
Where'd those come from?
They came from mountainstateFalconrySupply.com. And you know the best part about it? I'm in North Carolina. I ordered from Heather on, let's say, Saturday. I think they were here like Monday or Tuesday. It was like incredible. Being able to get something quickly on the East Coast is important to me because I don't know about you. I am like super scatterbrained about my falconry supplies. And it's like I decide I need something, but really I needed it a week ago. So yeah, it's good just to have Heather here on the East Coast. So I highly encourage people to check her out at mountainstatefalconrysupply.com. All right, Casey.
Yeah, what's up?
Let's talk tight, okay?
I love talking tight. Let's do it.
You're using it. Harrison's using it. I'm using it. Everybody's using it. Everybody who's anyone's using it. When we want the best, we go for the tightest. And who's doing the tightest?
Richard Moats at midnightfalconry.com.
That's right.
Aaron, we're supposed to be doing a podcast right now. What are you reading?
Oh, sorry, dude. I'm just enamored by this book I'm checking out by Bob Glass.
I can see the beautiful pictures from here. That's all I care about.
I know you're a picture guy, but there's a lot of really good words in here too.
I don't like the words.
Well, I do, but it's A Journey with Red Tails by author Bob Glass. Are you familiar with him, Casey?
Yeah, I grew up with Bob since I got into falconry. Before I was even in falconry, I met Bob. The guy has been flying everything for a tremendous amount of time, has a lot of experience, especially with red tails. And he decided, screw it, I'm going to write a book. And it's a really good book, excellent quality. He put his heart and soul into the thing. I got one right here behind me. It's excellent. Go check him out at ajourneywithredtails.com.
So today, Casey, after my red tail jackhammered a squirrel out of the tree in front of 20 people, we also put the goshawk up. And this goshawk is just wowing everybody with its acrobatics, just spiraling around trees after squirrels, flying to and fro through the treetops with ease. And I think you know where this bird came from.
I'm sure I would. The only place that a bird should come from. NorthMountainGoshawks.com for your next hunting partner. Visit him on Facebook and his website and fill out the questionnaire and tell him the Sporting Chance sent you. Winner of the most viewed episode of the year, Sean O'Neill, episode 22. Sean has a tremendous amount of experience with sighthounds, terriers, and pretty much any dog in between. His episode covered everything from acting in the Ninja Turtles movies to chasing down coyotes with his dogs. Sean has come on board and would like to offer the opportunity to our listeners to purchase dogs that he breeds himself. They'll chase anything from hares to bears. Go check him out at Clover Creek Canines on Facebook.
All right, let's get into it. You know, we keep it real on this podcast, I'd like to think. And today started off a really good day and has ended up being quite a terrible day.
Why is that? Like I don't know the answer.
So, for those of you listening out there, and you don't know this part, Casey,
okay.
I went out today hawking with a good friend of mine, Ben Shelton, friend of the show. He is the vice president of the North Carolina Falconers Guild. And let me just say, Ben is just all around just a good dude. He's funny. He's cool. He's a family man. He's a great falconer. He makes really good equipment. He braids. He makes hoods. He makes giant hoods. He's just an all around just good dude to know. So he actually got a dachshund from Teddy last year at my encouragement, which is kind of funny because he didn't really even know anything about Teddy, like at all. at all. He knew nothing about her, but he was getting a dachshund from her.
That's funny.
So he's been educated since then. But anyway, we went out hawking today, and he's getting into the rabbit hawking. He's mostly done squirrel hawking with red tails over the past few years. So he got himself a couple Harris hawks and got himself a dachshund and wanted to start rabbit hawking. So he's had some success with that. And today I took him to one of my honey holes and got him his first rabbit double, which is not easy to do in North Carolina. Not easy at all. I don't know if it's the nature of the cover or we have more predators or what, or, soil composition's weird. Who knows? But if you're getting 2 rabbits in a day here, you're doing really good. Most falconers end up with just, couple random incidental rabbits that they kick up out of some brush piles at a park or something.
I mean, I feel like that's most places east of the Mississippi.
You think so? Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Anytime I've been to the Northeast, I've always been blown away by how many rabbits are up there.
I mean, you come hawk in North Jersey, man. You'll kick all the brush piles you want. You won't see a rabbit.
And I'm never the guy who's going to find a rabbit in like a little pile of sticks in the woods. That just is never going to happen to me. Like look at my hand. Casey can see my hand. Look at this. That's familiar to you, right?
Big, muscular, manly hands.
Not only are they big, muscular, and manly, but they're just eaten up with briars, just torn to shreds. I mean, that's
the way they should look.
Yeah, that's from hard work, and that's an aside, but that is part of the reason why I find people who are braggadocious about park squirrels to be so offensive, because I'm out there busting my ass for this stuff that I catch. So to me, when I catch something that I've worked hard for, it means more to me.
Yeah. No, of course. Like anything in life,
it flies in my face. You spit in my face with your park squirrels. No, let me be clear. I do, I engage in that activity as well. It's fine. It's all good. Like, my friends are all sensitive. They're like, I caught a squirrel, but it was in a park, and they're like, cover up their face like I'm gonna smack them. I'm like, no, that's cool, man. That's cool. Absolutely. Yeah. They can be tough to catch too, but it's not tough hawking. You can walk around on trails and paths and all, and you've got, groundskeepers there. So
not getting whipped in the face with briars and sticks and
no, absolutely not. But so anyway, me and Ben went out, we got a couple of rabbits with his Harris hawks. He's a phenomenal hawker. He manages his Harris hawks so well. A lot of times you see Harris hawks and it's like a clown show, It's just, but his hawks are just, he's got it all dialed in. He's got a really nice operation going.
It's good.
So then we go to another field of mine. And a few weeks ago, I ran into some unhoused people in this field. But interestingly enough, they really had like a nice, clean little setup. They were tucked in there. There weren't the telltale signs of like trash everywhere. They were really kind of tidy.
So they had a sharp, one of those red medical sharps containers.
They might have
for all their needles.
They might have. So I ran into them a few weeks ago, and the lady was like kind of scared. She was like, "Do I need to leave?" And I said, "No, ma'am, you're fine."
Tell us how she really said it. Ew, do I need to leave?
This is the season, Casey. Let's be nice.
I'm just kidding.
So
hopefully they're staying warm out there.
Oh, they might be. So anyway, that we see them. They're like you can tell they're timid. They see us when we pull up, and like they're kind of peeking out of the brush. And I go, "Hey, it's okay. I talked to you guys the other week." And the guy comes out and he says, "We've hit some hard times." He said, I'm actually carrying my trash out. I do this every day. I carry my trash out and throw it in the dumpster. And he said, we're just, hopefully we're not out here for long, but we're just trying to lay low. I said, hey, man, I get that. So put my red tail up, and she just does the most beautiful red tail wing over onto a rabbit.
Nice, yes.
The dogs kick one up, and she like wings over right beside a fence and grabs the rabbit. But when I get over there, it like defies all logic. She's got her feet reaching through the fence. Like somehow she crashed on one side of the fence and simultaneously reached through the fence and grabbed the rabbit.
Dude, I never understand how they do that, man. It's crazy. Like, you know how
It's so
fast you have
weird.
to be to stick your feet through a chain link fence and grab a running rabbit? Like, I don't know how they do it.
It's so crazy, man. If you saw the flight too, you would be like, she must have like bent space and time to be able to do what she did. It was so cool. So after that, me and Ben actually went to Walmart and we got a gift card for those people.
That was nice of you.
Yeah, I was like, man, it's Christmas, and it was such a rare, good encounter with the unhoused out in the field. So they weren't there, so I tied the little Walmart bag up on a branch that was dangling in front of their tent. So hopefully they see it. Maybe they'll never see it. Maybe I come back there and after they've moved on and that bag's still hanging there. And but when we came back, I brought my goshawk and she's flying great. She's doing what she normally does. We hadn't got any slips yet, and she was on the edge of the field. And then I go down into like a little low area where there's some briars, and I would expect to see rabbits down there. And I see on the GPS that she moved into the woods. So, we all know she saw something in the woods. So I go over there. And then when I go over there, I look up and she's above me. And then she just takes off down through a couple hollers. You know what holler is now, right, Casey?
Yes.
She takes off. So it takes me a minute to get there, but she's just, she's zooming down there. So we all know that she was after something. She was flying after game. So I get down there, I'm looking at the GPS signal and she's right there where I'm at. But I wasn't sure where. I just assumed she was up in the trees. And the dogs go and they hit the base of this tree with a hole and they're going crazy, pulling on the bark, digging. So there was 100% a fresh squirrel inside that tree. And then Ben goes, there she is, dude. And I said, where? And he goes, on the ground. I turn around and she's laying on the ground. So
not good.
We have no idea what happened. The possibilities are endless, but at the top of the list is she either hit a branch, flying very fast, which can happen, right? In pursuit of the squirrel, not paying attention to her surroundings and hit something hard. Where we were, there were no fences, there were no fence posts, there was nothing man-made. It was just like hardwood forest. Maybe another raptor, struck her and stunned her and knocked her to the ground. Maybe I've heard of goshawks having aneurysms or having some kind of seizure, but it would be so weird for her just to randomly do it while she's flying and pursuing a squirrel. And Casey asked me, well, was she low in weight? No, she ate a nice meal the night before. So 10 hours before she had like a nice little crop up. And then her weight was what she's been flying at for the past year and a half. So it's a mystery. So right now I dosed her with anti-inflammatories and she's sitting in a box right now on a blanket. She's alive. Tomorrow morning, I'm taking her to the vet. I hope she's still with us in the morning, but it's fucking brutal, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rough.
It's fucking brutal. I mean, I love that bird.
Yeah.
You've seen her. She's an awesome bird, man. It's always the good ones, isn't it?
It really is. And it's just a testament to the fact that it can happen anywhere, anytime, in any scenario,
Yeah.
People that talk crap about people that lose birds in the field from various things. I mean, it's at the end of the day, I don't care what people say. Sometimes it's out of your control. There's only so much you can do. I mean, your bird hit if it was in a hole at the base of the tree, maybe she smacked into the bottom of the tree and just hit it wrong and smacked her head, hurt her spine. I mean, who knows? I mean, it could be anything. So
she's eating. I'm giving her some casting free food that's soaked in water. And she's eating it. It's like everyththing's there, but she's almost like she just can't stand. It's really fucking sad to see.
Yeah. Are the legs? Is there any activity with the legs? Or are they still just limp?
It's just kind of hard for me to tell if there is or not. I mean, she's not one leg. She's definitely kicking it more than the others. She'll move it around. One of them, there's way less activity going on with it. Her feet, I'm not exactly sure if she has control over it. Yeah, I'm not sure because she's not trying to foot me or anything. But if I go in and I touch her toes and, try and open her foot up, it'll close, but it's not obvious. It's not like she's snapping her feet shut.
But is she closing them, do you think?
I don't know if she's closing them or if the tendons are just naturally just kind of pulling them closed. I have no idea.
Jeez.
Yeah, I have some concerns that she may have to be euthanized tomorrow by the vet.
I mean, unless he sees something in the x-ray like the spine is separated or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, her tail was moving. I saw in the video, right?
Yeah. Her tail, I was feeling her body, trying to feel if there were any obvious breaks that I could feel. And her tail, while I was touching her body, she would move her tail. She would tense up and her tail would go up and down. But yeah, man, it's
rough. Yeah.
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. And I just got her out really for the season. Couldn't have been 2 weeks ago. She's caught a few things since I got her out. It started off a little rocky. I had her a little too high and she wasn't playing the game. And I believe in a very slow, methodical approach. I'm not into crashing a bird's weight and stressing them out. So I just took my time and dropped her weight down to where she needed to be. Then I had a busy week at work and I couldn't fly as much as I wanted to. But the first day I could get her out to fly at weight, she nailed a rabbit
Nice.
over the dogs. And then the next day she got a squirrel. And, she's been doing great. But, that's life, man.
Well, let's see. Let's not give up hope. Let's see what happens.
We'll keep the listeners posted.
Yeah.
So I need Mama Sue and the prayer warriors out there praying for me.
I'll tell her. I'll get her on it.
And then other than that, Lo, it's I met some guys who are interested in falconry who listen to the show like smart boys should. And they're excited about falconry. I feel like they have they have the right qualities to be good falconers. They've run into some BS gatekeeping along the way. You know how falconers can kind of be gatekeepy and not really want people to get into the sport. Try and dangle carrots in front of them or hold things over their head.
Right.
And so I'm going to do my best to help those guys out. And
you're just a holiday cheer this year, man. You're giving out gift cards to homeless people. Helping people out.
That was Ben as well with the gift card, so I can't take credit for that. But I point that out because it's the reason I point that out is not for a pat on the back, which I do expect some pats on the back. So please keep that in mind. I point that out because of the irony of doing something so nice, and then you still just get smacked in the face with the most brutal thing, literally 10 minutes afterwards.
Yeah. They'll teach you to be nice next time.
No good deed goes unpunished.
It's true. It's true. I hope the bird recovers because it's a phenomenal bird, and it just freaks me out now because it's I'm in the middle of the woods, nothing around,
no wires, no glass.
Still destroys themselves somehow. I mean, hopefully she recovers. I mean, I'm just trying to think of what the injury could be that she still can't stand on her own so far removed from the incident,
Yeah, I know you've had similar experiences, but it didn't take this long, I guess, right?
No, I had a couple of good window smacks, fence smacks, goose pummelings. And yeah, the symptoms that you're describing was kind of what they looked like post-accident, but then they recovered relatively quickly. A couple times I had to administer meds, anti-inflammatories, and I must point out that there is a viewpoint on the anti-inflammatories that they could increase internal bleeding at the same time. I have heard that, but I'm not. I mean, I think if that brain is starting to swell, I'd rather try to keep the brain from swelling and pray that there's no internal bleeding.
There's nothing I can do about internal bleeding.
No, there's nothing you can do. There's really nothing you can do at this point other than get to the vet tomorrow and get an X-ray done and see if something's broken, dislocated. I mean, part of me thinks maybe that one of the legs is broken, but that doesn't explain why you felt up the tarsus and the everything.
Yeah,
everything feels good.
Yeah. As far as I could tell, everything felt fine, but I don't, it would have to be pretty obvious for me to tell. I'm sure an avian vet could feel things that were, awry, but I'm not trained in that respect. So if it was like, if I felt like an obvious break, that'd be one thing, but I don't feel anything like that. So
yeah. Well, let's
just goes to show we kind of, in a lot of ways, we know very little about these birds.
Yeah, not unless you have X-ray vision.
And that's just Superman and Homelander, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, let's just see, man. I'm gonna hold out. I'm gonna hold out hope that she'll be okay. But
yeah,
I mean, she didn't look good in the video. I mean, she looked relatively alert. No, I mean, she didn't look good in the video, but she was like looking around. She was kind of looking at you while you were touching her. She was eating food from the bowl, but her eyes were a little dim. So, I mean, I think maybe she just whacked her head pretty good and is just kind of like a little bit in shock still, maybe.
Concussed or something.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping that's all it is. I mean, there's always a risk of other stuff popping up. Like, because I texted a bunch of people, so I was hearing stuff like, bird will recover from the hit and then, have a seizure a couple days later.
Oh, good.
Some will knock themselves out, be all wobbly for a day, and then the next day they're completely fine and there's no symptoms after that. I mean, it's like, at this point, it's pretty much just up in the air.
Yeah.
But she's alive, so you got to have hope.
Yeah, there's that. And she looks with it right now. So it'll be interesting to see. So I'll keep you posted on that. But pretty excited about our upcoming trip.
Yeah, me too, man. It's gonna be exciting.
Do we want to divulge what we're doing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we talked about it in a previous episode. We're going with the super cool Kirk Price to West Virginia to hunt some bears.
Be my first bear hunt. Be your second or third, I think.
It'll be like my 50th bear hunt. Only one was successful.
He keeps posting pictures of them with dead bears. I'm like, stop. I just need you to put the brakes on it, slow down, save some bears.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, please. I need a win right now. It's now more than ever.
Yeah. I texted him this morning. I told him that, our Airbnb is booked, bringing the birds, the dogs, looking forward to it. And he texted me back. He's super pumped. He's excited. Hopefully he's got some good rabbit fields out there. But yeah, it's going to be good. I'm excited, man.
Yeah, me too. I'm just like got butterflies in my stomach. I really hope it's successful.
I think I have a very strong. I mean, I think either way it's going to be successful. I mean, he's on bears like every single day.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'd be a matter of not seeing action. I think it's just a matter of treeing the right bear, which is the reason why using dogs is so ethical, because you can tree them and identify them and decide whether or not it's something you can shoot legally or if it's something you want to shoot based off of the size, sex,
I don't
whatever.
care if it's a 40-pound bear that looks like a dog. It's going down.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought process.
I'm just joking about that.
I'm not.
I hope and pray it's not. I hope and pray it's the right bear.
Yeah. Dude, any bear that's legal, it's just, they all taste delicious, man.
It might be one meal or it might be 20 meals, right?
Yeah. I mean, you'll get some good roast out of it. But yeah, 40 pound, yeah, it's a little small. It's like a cub.
Yeah, I don't want to shoot a little cub.
You're like, nah, I think I'll pass on this one. And I just jump over you and just.
You're like, bro, he's gonna die no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's either by your hand or mine.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited. You're up first, right?
That's the plan.
Yeah, I think you should be up first. I already killed one. You never killed one. So I'll go second. I'm just hoping all the birds do well also.
Well, I got a feeling I won't be taking my goshawk no matter what.
Yeah, unless you just like tomorrow you open up the box and she's just standing up there with a foot up.
Yeah.
You know?
Attacking me or something.
Yeah, other than that, I would I'd probably let her sit this one out. But you got a good red tail. That's why I always say gotta have two birds, man. Always gotta have two birds.
Yeah, I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for you pushing me to do that.
Yeah, and the fact that you had meloxicam on deck ready to go is huge.
Yeah,
because that's something that could take, if you can't get your vet, tomorrow's Christmas Eve, you had it sitting right there, dosed it up, gave it to her. It's really good to keep that stuff on hand, especially anti-inflammatories.
What more could I have done,
There's not much you can do in this kind of a situation.
And luckily, my apprentice, she works part-time for an avian vet, and he's going to be there tomorrow in the morning giving meds to the patients that are staying there. And because of her, I'm going to see my bird for me.
Is he going to charge you? Probably, right?
I'm sure he will, yeah. And he's well within his, I wouldn't blame him if he did. I would gladly pay him for that. Yeah,
my vet is like weird. He's like, well, he's not. He just built like this multi-million-dollar setup. It's got like a dog park in the basement. It's all marble. Looks like a high-end mall. And then he's got the lab upstairs. And it's like, I'll go in and he'll do something. He'll charge me like $50, or like I'll call him on the phone, say, my bird hit a fence, or I'll just tell him I want meds and he'll just write me a script for my bird on file. And then, then other days I'll go in there and I walk out spending $400, $500. Dude, the laser might be good too for your bird, depending on if there is an injury they find.
Yeah.
People swear by that laser. They absolutely swear by it. I heard Phil's dog threw her back out, and it was like dragging its legs around, and it was like, and he was trying to like wait, see if it would, because sometimes if that happens with especially certain lines have that, and then like you just give them a little time, a little rest, maybe some anti-inflammatories, and then all of a sudden they're like walking around again. So it went on for like 2 days, and he's like, forget it, I can't watch this anymore. So then he went to the vet, and they did like the laser, and like the next day the dog was like running around the yard.
I've heard that for dogs.
So now he's like, he's sweating. I like swears by. Well, they did it to my bird, Karen. She took a bite. She took a bite on her leg, and there was no damage. It was just a deep bite, and he wanted me to try the laser because they never used it on a bird of prey before. So he was all excited. So he put the laser on her, and she died 3 days later on New Year's Eve, flying into a window. But foot looked good for a little while there.
You know what's so funny about that is my favorite. One of my favorite birds of all time was a Harris hawk that was just incredible that got electrocuted. She got a squirrel bite, and the day before I took her to the vet because the bite was a little inflamed. Took her to the vet for some antibiotics, and then like the next day or 2 days later, she gets electrocuted.
Dude, that's crazy because like literally the last picture and video in my phone is Karen getting the laser treatment on her feet in the office.
I remember that now that you say that.
Yeah, and then like 2 days later, New Year's Eve, flies into it was with all my buddies, flying a spot and right into this one lone window. And this, I told the story a million times, so I'm not going to tell it again. But yeah. So welcome, Josh. Josh is here.
How's it going, guys?
Josh Davis from good old Washington.
Yes, sir. Well, I was listening. Tell me about this laser. What exactly is happening there?
It's like this. It's not so new anymore, but it's like this. They use like a pulse laser for like in veterinary medicine. I'm sure they do it for humans too. It probably causes cancer. But it's basically it's supposedly it penetrates the skin and stimulates cell growth by the way the laser interacts with the skin. And I've heard some anecdotal stuff of dogs that were dragging their legs, laser treatment. The next day they're walking around. So my bird, I went in there for like a routine checkup. It wasn't really routine. I don't really go for routine checkups. She was acting a little off. I wanted to do a mute sample and have him kind of look at her. And, I was just in the area, and he's, a vet I use a lot. And then he's like, what's with these, what's with you got a nice scab on the foot there. I said, I think she got bit by a squirrel or something. He goes, hey, we got this laser. He charged me like $10 for the laser. Like, he's like, let's just try it. Let's just put it on there. Let me know. And so she did the laser. We had to wear goggles and stuff. And who knows? It's probably just a laser pointer that they modified.
That's wild.
Yeah, I don't know. Dude, they got all kinds of crazy stuff now.
The laser might have had something to do with her death.
Yeah, dude. Maybe she got maybe she's like blinded from it and flew in the window. I was actually flying her super heavy that day too. And I found that both my birds that died, the one that got electrocuted and the one and Karen that flew into the window, they were both heavy the day that they died.
So, interesting thing about that is I feel like when you're flying birds heavy, they're a little more careful about the shots they take.
Yes, that, but when they're heavy and you're flying, they do stupid stuff. So the Tiercel died because I was swinging the lure and I was calling him up, and instead of coming to the lure, he flew over me and landed on the wire. And then Karen was like all skittish because people were in the field and like multiple people and multiple dogs. And she was super calm, but not when she's heavy. And she was acting a little weird and kind of like checking off the flights and stuff. And then chased one rabbit. And then I don't know if it had something to do with it, but I will say this, that the 3 slips that she got earlier in the day, if she would have followed through and caught them, which she could have, she wouldn't have died because she would have been put up. She would have been put up. She would have been fed up and back in the truck.
What do you think, Josh?
I've definitely noticed my birds being more selective when they're heavy, being really picky on easier slips, just waiting for something better to come along. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I have a theory that when you're hawking rabbits down here, you definitely don't want a bird that's desperate, because they take every shot they can get, and it's just like fruitless. They're down in the brush and they got to like power back up out of it. If the bird is like at that sweet spot, that sweet spot, they go for that right slip,
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're hawking over on the west side of Washington, it's like Washington is like split right down the middle by the Cascades. It could essentially be 2 different states, the east side versus west side. So west side's super wet. Obviously, everybody knows it rains there all the time. So if your bird is crashing fruitlessly, it's just going to be waterlogged in no time.
So what part of Washington do you live in?
I currently live north central in the foothills of the Cascades.
You could hop over to like the plains or the wet side, whichever one you want.
Yeah. So in about November, I get dumped on with snow, and there's a highway called Highway 20, and that shuts down. When 20 is open, it's like 3 hours for me to get to the west side. But once it shuts down, it takes me 4.5 hours, which is what it took me today. I'm at my in-laws now, versus I'm technically east side, but I'm like the very beginnings of it. So I'm in a really small valley called the Methow, and it takes me like 45 minutes to an hour and 10, depending on which direction I want to go, to drop out of my valley and hit central Washington or start heading into the more eastern Washington areas.
I've been to Seattle a couple times. I went to Mount Rainier while I was there. Love Seattle. As far as big cities are concerned, Seattle was such a cool place. There were, at the time, I wasn't into game birds, so I don't know what the hell they were. But there were like some little, up on the mountain, I noticed like these little like grouse or partridge or something like materializing in the rocks. Yeah. It's like suddenly you start to see them and they're just like everywhere. What were those? Do you have any idea?
Were you really high up?
I was high as hell, dude.
Yeah, if you were super high up, there's a chance you saw ptarmigan. I haven't even seen those yet myself, but
Yeah,
we
we
do
were.
have 3 species of forest grouse. We got the ruffed, the spruce, and the blue grouse. Which, depending on which side of the mountain you're on, it's actually 2 different subspecies. So you got the sooty and the dusky grouse.
We were up very high during the summer. There was still like snow and ice up there. And these grouse were hanging out on like rocky, hillsides. I say grouse, whatever the hell they were. These birds were hanging out. So I don't know. I didn't get any pictures of them.
Yeah.
Do you think they could have been ptarmigan?
I mean, there's a chance. I know that there are ptarmigan on Rainier. So I'd actually like to go visit just so I can say I've seen them.
Seen them? You got to try catch them with that tiercel. Is it tiercel, right?
Yeah, I have a tiercel, and I think that they are a closed game species for us.
Interesting. Yeah, you should definitely go try to catch them with your tiercel.
Take or something. I'm just kidding. Absolutely.
Yeah. we're all just joking.
Just kidding,
totally.
Fish and Game.
Yeah. Just kidding. How far away is that mountain from you?
Oh, it'd be pretty far. I'd be looking at least 5 hours, I think, to get to that one.
Dude, and speaking of closed things, you were telling me on the phone earlier that you have. Tell me what you were telling me earlier. Talk us through that. Well, actually, wait. Let's be professional. Josh, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the listeners who you are, where you're from. Well, you kind of said that already, but just a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. My name is Josh Davis. I am from Texarkana originally, Twin City, in between Texas and Arkansas. We moved around a bit as I was growing up. I lived in Virginia and Oklahoma, rural parts of Arkansas. Then I met a pretty lady from Seattle. Technically, the
How pretty.
Beautiful, the prettiest. Yeah, I like a dark aesthetic and a bad attitude, and I got it. So.
Oh, me too,
Man,
dude.
Don't go falling in love with me.
Yes, I moved up to Washington in 2013, and I lived on the west side for 9 years, and now I've been in the Methow area for the last coming up on 3 years.
Very cool. And when did you start falconry?
Yeah, so I got my license January of 2019. I actually, so if you want to hear the whole "how did you get into falconry" bit, obviously I read My Side of the Mountain as a kid. But my commute to college in Arkansas, I went to Southern Arkansas University. It's like Southwest Arkansas, and it's right in the middle of the Mississippi Flyway. So I had this hour commute every day, and in the fall, I mean, I could count hundreds of hawks in the hour that it took me. And that kind of reminded me of the book. So I hopped on YouTube, figured out about falconry, realized I didn't have time, and forgot about it. When I moved to Washington, I was really into sport bikes, but that's super seasonal here because of how wet it was. So I started looking up videos on YouTube of ratting because I thought that was cool. And I came across the mink videos, with Joseph Carter, the minkery.
Yeah.
So, he mentioned being a falconer, and that
also
brought
critic of the show.
Yeah. Joseph is a friend of the show and a critic of the show. He's
okay.
He doesn't hold his punches.
I sent a message to him and the president of the Washington Falconry Association on the same day, and I told my wife, whoever gets back to me first, I'm either doing minkery or falconry. And the falconers got back to me, so I went.
Did he ever get back to you?
He did, yeah. Actually, we've talked a few times. I wouldn't say that we know each other well, but he's invited me to come down and see what he's doing, and I hope I get to do that sometime.
That's cool. Awesome, man.
But yeah,
so, go ahead. So finish your story.
Man, I'm really into YouTube. I was binging goshawks hunting ducks. I'm pretty sure I was watching a few of your videos, and I know I was watching some of the Sierra shortwing.
Yeah,
I was watching some of those.
Lou Souter, shout out Lou Souter.
Yeah. So I showed up to Brad Felger's house. He was the president at the time of WAFA. And I told him, I said, hey, I want to fly a goshawk on ducks. And I've romanticized this. I said, I need to see the parts that suck and make sure this is something I really want to get into. Not knowing he was a falcon breeder. And so he handed me a shovel and said, well, let's get started. And we started cleaning out all of his mews and enclosures and breeding chambers, and he put me to work that first day. And I was like, yeah, hey, will you sponsor me? And, he ended up being my sponsor.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to say something about My Side of the Mountain.
Yeah, go for it.
That book sucks.
Yeah, through the eyes of a kid, though, man, it was wild.
I'm just joking. Just
Yeah,
a
so
little,
I
just a
ended
little
up-
joke for you. People don't like jokes anymore.
Yeah, so
Go
I wanted
ahead.
a red tail because I figured that was closest to goshawks. But I didn't end up with all the paperwork and stuff. I didn't get my license till January. And I'm way too impulsive to have to wait a whole season. And I knew it wasn't worth catching a red tail, training it just to fly it for maybe a couple weeks on rabbits. So I went out, I trapped a little kestrel and a male, and I got him started. And on one of his very first slips after a sparrow, he got completely mobbed by a murder of crows. They took him down in an adjacent field, and like I'm running over there to get to him, and I see this lady run out, and I'm swinging a lure because I don't know where he's at, and I have to look crazy. She's like, "Are you looking for a falcon?" And nobody says that,
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
"Yes." And she said 3 crows had him down on the ground. I threw rocks at him, and he flew off, but he didn't look right. It's like, no. So like, I never ended up finding him. So
Oh gosh.
that was a bummer for the first bird. But then there was a young lady in Washington who had a kestrel for quite a while, and she decided falconry wasn't for her. That she wanted to let her kestrel go. So I said I would take it on as a secondhand bird. The thing was a screamer. I got it I got it really fit doing jump ups, and I taught it to lure fly, and it would do like 8 to 13 passes, and then we did a little bit of car hawking, and actually one of the coolest things that bird did, I could go down like a really rural road at an idle, and he would ride, or she would ride the side mirror, and then just go after these dragonflies like little fighter jets. And that was super cool. But I let her go after she was really fit because I was looking forward to a red tail.
That's awesome. Did you catch anything with that bird?
Just a bunch of dragflies. She got really close to a couple non-game species. She almost nabbed a red-winged blackbird, and she got pretty close to a few cowbirds, but we never ended up catching any birds.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I think when you're flying micros, I think you should be allowed to catch whatever you want.
I agree. I mean, that's their prey base in the wild anyway.
It's their prey base. I mean, how many micro falconers are there in the country? What impact are they going to have? I mean, if you can let your feral cat kill, 3.4 billion songbirds a year throughout the whole country, why can't you catch a couple red-winged blackbirds with your kestrel out, in the field?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I'm actually in contact with I'm in contact with a lawyer that is involved with some organizations. And I was just thinking about it because they're always trying to ban hound hunting. They're always trying to ban trapping. They're always trying to do all this stuff. And I said, you know what? I texted my buddy who's a lawyer, and I said, James, I said, well, what would be involved in suing the federal government about the feral cat epidemic? I said, why can we not do that? Because they're destroying the ecosystem. They're removing so many native populations. They've actually brought animals to extinction, and there's impunity for those who allow their animals to do this. And yet they'll rake us over their coals if we catch something out of season and don't leave it where it lies, and we happen to bring it home, or there's a feather in your mew when they come for an inspection. So I said, exactly. So I said, I think it's time. Enough of this crap. I think it's time we go on the offensive and we start suing people. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to antagonize the game and fish agencies, but at the end of the day, it's like, crazy cat lady can do whatever the hell she wants, and you got your boot on my throat, trying to follow every law to the letter of the law. Am I wrong? Everyone's quiet.
No, you're absolutely right, in my opinion. I think that we are way behind other countries in their management of wildlife and how they treat game species. We talked to a good friend of the show, Tony Gillihan, early on the podcast, and they have active bounties on feral animals, and they strongly encourage you to do things like shoot feral cats. So
$75 a head on feral dogs.
yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
And then in places like France, basically every wild animal is a game animal out there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I hear you guys in multiple of the shows I've listened in on. Like, seems like cats are a big issue for you. Like, occasionally I come across. It's definitely a house cat, but I never see the cat colonies that I hear you guys mention. I don't know if they're.
I bet
I don't
there's
know how big of a thing
ton
they
of
are
them in
here.
Seattle.
Yeah, we have more homeless people than cats. That's for sure.
Yeah, you live in it looks like, based off of your Instagram, you look like you're in pretty nice rural country for
where
the most
I live
part.
now, I can go hunting without seeing a single person. But when I lived on the west side, I encountered people a lot, especially homeless. Like, I had a box cutter pulled on me one time. There was a couple homeless people. If I was going there, like, I knew them, I would bring coffee with me when I went. Just I knew they were going to be there.
He's got the right idea.
Yeah.
When we started this episode, I was telling Casey that me and a friend gave some unhoused individuals a Walmart gift card today.
There you go.
Because they're so nice. They keep their spot clean. They're not trashing the place. They're respectful.
Yeah, this one guy, one time I was hunting with my red tail, and she followed the dog. Like, she was glued to the dog. She understood the game. And she left me and the dog and went and sat above my car. And she wasn't the kind of bird that would like go to the car when she was done. She wasn't done. She wanted to hunt. And she's looking straight down. And so I walk back over there, and this man had carried in a lazy boy recliner, set it up right next to my car, and was reclined back. And my bird's just staring at him. And I was like, can I help you? And
it's like something Harrison would do.
He's like, what's going on? I said, I'm out here hunting. I know I'm trespassing, so I know you're probably trespassing. I said, just don't kick my dog and we'll be good. And he was like, okay, I love dogs. I'm like, awesome.
But so random.
Tell us about the box cutter.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So there was this falconer who was getting her bird started. I knew a spot that was just chock full of rabbits. On the west side, when you're hunting, it's all blackberries, like nature's barbed wire. It's nasty. It's thick. And at the time, I still had my dachshund. She had a dachshund too, and she had a Harris hawk. And so we're like working this brush, and I used to carry a big painter pole with me for like beating brush. And then also I found it was helpful when you're in like a sea of blackberries, you can lay that thing down and then walk across it and, Donkey Kong across the top of there. And I'm like in hip deep blackberries. And all of a sudden I look up and above me because there was this is warehouse that had like kind of burned down, right? So there's still concrete platforms in some areas. Somebody's standing above me, and he starts like yelling at me about how I was there last night. He knows me and my friend came planning to kill him, and we don't have the drop on him. Like, I know you're here. And I'm like, hey, man, like, I'm hunting rabbits. I got a dog in here, and if you look up, there's a hawk, and he's not having it. He's like, I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to kill you. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, okay, at this exact moment in time, I'm hip deep in blackberries, and I don't have a whole lot of mobility, but I do have a ranged weapon. I'm like, if I can keep him at bay, once he drops down in the blackberries, we're both screwed, and then I can get away before he can get to me. Like, or I can try and back out of here. So I went the de-escalation route, and I was like, hey, we'll leave. And I start trying to back up, and, you're not getting out of there quickly. And he's super mad that I'm obviously still there, but I get out, and I go and I tell the other falconers that, hey, there's somebody he's responding to internal stimuli. Like, he's not with it. I don't know if he's high, but he's got a box cutter. I don't want to get cut today. And she's like, oh, well, I have my handgun with me. I'm packing. I'm like, that's great. Cool. Stay with me, but we're not going to shoot this guy over a rabbit. Like,
yeah, we are. Are you kidding me?
Casey, I definitely would have shot him.
So, hell yeah, bro. You know how hard rabbit fields are to find? Is this some crazy guy with a box cutter? The hell out of here.
So we back out, and then I decide, you know what? I've got permission to be here. I wasn't trespassing that day, so let's call 911, get a cop over here, and kick the guy out. But Washington laws are pretty ridiculous, and they've changed the policies in which our police can make contact with individuals. So reasonable suspicion is no longer enough for a cop to make contact with you. You have to have probable cause, and I'm not a legal person by any means, so I can't clearly define that for you. But essentially, they showed up and told me because I had permission to be there, but I was not the property owner, they couldn't make contact with him, even though he had threatened me. And because I had broken eye contact with him, that took away another layer of their probable cause, because how could I confirm, in fact, it's still the same individual and their hands were tied? I was really, frustrated with the whole thing. And I told him, I was like, so you're telling me he threatened me and you can't go do anything about it? And essentially, and they said, yeah. And I was like, okay, so if I go over there and get in an altercation with him, can you do anything about me and him fighting? And they said, not unless the property owner calls. So then I'm weighing my options, right? Do I want to go clear this guy out myself? And I'm thinking about, I am an ER nurse. That was my career up until recent. So I'm thinking about all the communicable diseases I might catch from a nasty box cutter and whatever else is over there. And it's just rabbits. We have other fields we can go to. I decided to take the high road and leave it alone. But still, it's the stuff you have to deal with here. Like, it's hard to find a good spot anyway. And then you find a good spot and there's homeless people there. It's like the worst.
Bro.
Sounds like you should have just shot him, dude.
Yeah.
It would have been way easier. Just shoot him.
Yeah. I lost a spot this year to a permanent camp that appears to have be staying. I had high hopes that as it got cold, they were going to be gone, but they are not. They look quite cozy.
They just double down and stuff newspaper in their jackets.
Yeah, that particular spot though is it is a transient hot spot. I had the cops called on me once back with my dachshund, and at the time I didn't have a GPS yet, so I yelled his name a lot because I didn't have tone to recall yet. I wasn't that advanced in my dogmanship, and so I'd be yelling "Snowman" all the time. And that actually got the cops called on me a few times because of that. But this time I'm hunting and I'm wearing this this Carhartt jacket. It's practically skin colored, And I'm beating bushes and we're working for this red tail. And I just get the feeling somebody's watching me. And I turn around and I see a police officer standing at the edge of the field. And I look back and I'm like, can I help you? And he said, oh my God, you're normal. He said, I swear you were a naked man in there yelling about snowmen, and I thought I was going to have to go hands-on with you.
Yeah. Dude, we do. We talk about it all the time, right, Aaron, on the show that, we look, falconers, most of us, we look like very sketchy people in the field, at least on the East Coast.
Oh, we do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's universal. We're all wearing Carhartt.
I think I look like a hot boy out there.
Yeah, I bet you do. Guys wearing Filson and stuff. He's got that teacher money.
I think the dachshund that I had might have been related possibly to your guys' dogs.
If you had a dog from Bear, then yes. Paul and Phil bred Bear. My sponsors, they bred Bear.
My dog was a full brother to Bear, so yeah, Paul would have bred him.
So Paul bred, yeah, okay, yeah. So you had, yeah. I literally may have a picture of my wife holding one of those puppies. How long did you have that dog?
How long ago did I have him? 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. And he would have been 5 or 6 at the time.
I feel like I know his name.
Bear?
Snowman. That's not a joke. I feel like I know his name.
He was owned by Brian before he was owned by me, Brian Brown.
Brian Brown. Why does that sound familiar? Do I know Brian Brown?
Because it's the most generic name you could ever. It's like John Doe.
Dude, in falconry, there's quite a few Aarons.
Yeah.
There's quite a few Brians.
Too many Aarons, if you ask me.
Yeah, there's at least 4 or 5 Aarons that I know of.
A handful of Joshes.
There's a couple Joshes. Okay. There's no Caseys other than me.
No, every other Casey is a girl.
You're giving me trauma from when I was a kid, man. They used to tease me. That's a girl's name.
You're like, no, Casey Jones is a guy.
Yeah, that was when I saw Ninja Turtles, man, I was so happy, bro.
You're like, Mom, give me a hockey mask.
Yeah. We used to anyway. Hey, we had a previous guest that was an extra in that show. Not really an extra. He was actually one of the ninjas in that show. He was a star. He followed them back to their lair in the subway.
I listened to that episode of some of the stories he was telling were just wild.
Wild, man. Absolutely wild. So what's the vibe like in your club? Are you involved in your club at all?
Yeah. So I'm a member of the Washington Falconry Association. And I like the club. I go to all the meets. I'm a board member of Northwest Game Hawkers, which is a regional hunting club. And so we started up, I think we're coming up on 2 years now. And so that is Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. Well, we have Mike from Alaska, but
yeah. Yeah, I heard he came down to your meet this year and had a good time.
Yeah. I actually, every single time we have had the opportunity to meet up and go hunt, it has not worked out. And I really want to see Lucky fly. At this meet, we all met up and I worked evening shift. So my bird's ready to go at like 8:30 every day. And everybody wanted to meet up at 8. So my bird's like primed, ready to go. And then we're sitting and chit-chatting. And then we're getting groups together. And Mike has a place he wants to go fly. We get behind him. And then I realize where he's going is like a 45-minute drive. And I already had a plan for where I was going to hunt, which was only a few minutes away. And so I split off from the group to go fly my goss because I could hear him jumping around in the box. And I knew like I needed to be hunting already. So
Good call. Yeah. That's a high level move right there that you pulled. I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So no drama in your clubs up there?
Not the kind, especially not like what you guys were describing about was that the New Jersey club where somebody got punched out and they made a second?
That was the North Carolina club.
North Carolina.
Jersey, everybody's pretty
at all.
Yeah, everybody's pretty chill in Jersey. PA's got some drama, Maryland's got some drama. But we actually, Aaron, we have to do an update for the listeners because we were filled in as to why the Maryland club was kind of the way it was.
Yeah, that text was too long. I didn't read it, but if you
I didn't read it either.
Ahead.
I was driving and I just pushed speak. Dude, I don't read half the stuff he sends me. So Josh, I'm gonna lay it out for you, and then you tell me your opinion on it. Because like for me, if I was the president of the club and this situation happened, I would be irritated. But I'd be like, hey, people are paying to come to the meet. They're coming, they're going to buy raffle tickets. They're going to buy dinner. They're going to hear the guest speaker, more butts in the seats. Good for the club. Maryland doesn't really think that. So what was happening is people were coming to the meet, falconers, right? And let's say there was 10 falconers that are going to the meet, along with the other falconers that are actually flying. There was 10 that would go that weren't bringing any birds. They weren't planning to hawk, but they would each bring 5 friends. Okay. Bunch of spectators, nobody's flying.
Looky loos.
Then they would basically, it was kind of a scumbag thing. So they would go there, they would just participate in the meet, beat brush, and they would drop pins at all these spots. And then at a later date, they'd go back with their buddies and they would hawk the field. So the next year, a bunch of people RSVP'd, and then I guess the president or somebody, I would imagine, reached out to them and said, are you bringing birds? And everybody that said they weren't bringing birds, they just told them, no, they don't come. And then eventually they just kind of closed the whole club and said the meet's canceled. And then they just did it invite only, like a small invite only. Like I see it. I see it both ways, but I think it was kind of scumbagish on one end, but canceling the meet outright over a little dispute is kind of, I think, a little bit of, what do you think, Aaron? A little overreacting?
It's tough because I was the former president of the club here, and
Where is here for the listeners?
North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was the president of the club here, and being the president of a falconry club is challenging to say the least. And there's really no you oftentimes are presented as the bad guy because you have to make the adult decisions, and you're always going to have people that don't like it, and those people will often be very vocal. And you have to be professional, and you have to represent your membership, so you can't really drag them through the mud. So you kind of have to take the high road. But I mean, yeah, to your point, and it is kind of the chicken shit route to say, but I see both points, because it's really annoying when you have field meets and people come, but they don't bring birds, because you have so many looky-loos that want to see falconry, and you just end up with like each falconer flying a bird has like 20 people with them, which is ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I hate that. I'm to the point now where I'm just going to say, you know what? Never mind. I'm just going to go home rather than take 20 people out with me.
Right.
I'm just not into that. I hate that. What do you think, Josh?
I think you do need someone who's capable of having hard conversations, especially in the situation where somebody's going back and visiting hawking spots that they were shown. I think rather than shutting down a meet, maybe you need to talk to the people who are causing the issue.
This is what we do to those people. For those of you out there, I'm holding up a finger gun. That's like the scummiest thing you could ever do is go back to a hawking spot that you weren't invited to go back to.
I mean, most of these, I feel like a lot of times these places end up being private permissions that someone has, and they've cultivated a relationship with the landowner. You definitely need to respect that. If it is public land, like obviously we all own a piece of that and it's public access, but I mean, be courteous, give the guy a phone call and let him know, hey, I'm going to be in the area. I was thinking about hitting this spot, and kind of fill that out. Because I mean, if there's public land there's public land elsewhere. And I personally spend a lot of time scouting. I'm always on X looking for the next place to hit. I don't like overhunting my fields. And just because I've got enough to sustain me now doesn't mean I'm not going to lose those fields. I want to be looking for the next spot. So I think it's kind of lazy to piggyback off of somebody else's hard work. Not that you don't always need. I mean, there's going to be a time when you need that. You're entering a new bird. I'm struggling with that right now, but I don't have anybody to piggyback off of. I'm working through it in action right now.
That's good, man. No, I like that. I really like the way you said that you got to, I may have enough fields now, but I may not have them in the future. So I got to find new ones. I just think it's just, it really is. It's like, I mean, I said it on a previous episode, my best spot. And when I say best spot, it's like 6 rabbit fields and an entire like unlimited amount of squirrel spots in one, like more spots than you could hit in a season. And somebody fell out of their tree stand, sued the town. And now the town said, okay, you want to sue us? Okay, no hunting now. Everybody's out. And now they won't even let the guy with the dachshund and the goshawk go walk around in the field and beat brush. Cops told me, they didn't write me a citation, but the cop said they told us to crack down on this. If you come back here, we're going to have to write you a citation. Just don't come back. And I'm like, this is like one of my favorite spots to come to. He's like, I know, man, but don't come back. The town is not happy.
That's such a bummer.
It's such a bummer. So it's like, yeah, the whole argument that it's public land and, I'll go to it anyway. I get it. Like, obviously you're legally allowed to go there, but if it's like, okay, so what happened was in Maryland is the guy snuck back to the spot and they didn't realize that one of the falconers at the meet, it was literally his own property that he purchased. And then the guy caught him there, and there was like 10 dudes in the field trying to catch rabbits. And he's like, first of all, you're trespassing. Second of all, you drove like 3 hours to get here. Like, what the hell are you doing? So it was I definitely see it both ways. It's definitely interesting, the drama within clubs. That I definitely made a premature judgment of the Maryland club and kind of was a little, I was invited to one of the invite only meets, which was great. I caught a rabbit. And it was nice of, I think it was Dave Parks to invite me via Teddy Moritz. And it was a great meet. It was very organized. They had homemade food at the meat house. It was hosted at the president's home. Had a huge buffet of food for breakfast, pancakes, eggs, all kinds of stuff. Everybody met up. It was very organized. And then at night, we had a banquet at another falconer's property, which was a big, giant old farm that was like in the family for however many years. And they had a big, like, something like us falconers would dream of, like a big old barn with all taxidermy, giant, huge wood burning stove that heated the whole place. It was like 100 degrees in that room, and just food all over the place that like the wives of the officers of the club all cooked, from scratch. And, and then we would grab our plate of food and then go out and stand. And there was a duck pond in the bottom that the ducks would come in every night. So somebody put their peregrine up, and we literally stood there eating steak and all this food while this guy's peregrine is just ringing up, and the ducks are like pinned down, and then you just see a couple guys down there running around flushing the ducks. It was definitely a fun meet in Maryland. It was a really nice time. So I may have made some judgments on them based off of the stories that I heard, but now that it was clarified to me what was actually going on, I definitely see it both ways. Like you can't.
We'll have to ask Harrison how he felt when he was caught red-handed at that guy's field.
Okay, so just for listeners, Harrison's a recurring character on the show. He's a character that we have built up in the show, and he gets mad when we make him out to be a spot thief. So Harrison, we're just joking. Relax. And Aaron just keeps going with it. He thinks it's funny.
I've got this thing, Josh, that the most important audience for my jokes is me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then you never disappoint. Yeah.
Oh God. All right. Let's get back to
Let's get back to the swing of things. So you are flying a Tiercel goshawk, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, hold on. We had whoa, hey, bro. Josh has flown quite a few different species.
We'll get into that, but I want to know about the now, okay? I want to know about the now.
All right.
Okay. Right now, Josh is flying a Tiercel goshawk. So Tiercel goshawk, that could mean a lot of things. That could be a Siberian imprint, could be a Siberian parent race. You could have climbed a nest and got a Olympic goshawk up there in the Northwest.
Yeah, those are cool.
Tell us about this particular bird that you're flying.
All right. I have a North American and wild taken Ias, a little bit late, but pulled from my own county. And it's an imprint, Tiercel. I actually, this journey kind of started for me last year. I spent a ton of time looking for goshawk nests last year. I have horses, so I need a ton of hay. So one thing I did was make a agreement with my neighbor who's a rancher, and he open range feeds his cattle in the national forest. He's thousands of acres on these allotments, and he needs fencing done. So I made an agreement in exchange for 12 tons of hay. I would do 120 hours of fence mending in the national forest. So I did a ton of walking around last year. I had obviously 120 hours worth of fence mending, but I did about 70 plus hours of dedicated boot time looking for goshawk nests. And I ended up finding one. I watched this pair of goshawks raising their babies. I saw when they fledged. And then right when they started flying pretty good, I decided I was going to take a family group goshawk. And so I tried a couple different traps. I set out a BC trap first. I caught mom, let her go, and tried to catch the babies, but they landed on a log next to the BC. And what I've been told since then is I should have elevated the BC off the ground, and my chances of having them jump on it would have been better. But I didn't know that at the time. Couldn't get them to commit. I built a box trap. Have you seen those?
Swedish goshawk trap?
Not a Swedish. No. So imagine like a 4x4 box that's like a chain link fence, except I did bird netting around the sides. And then on top, you have a flat surface. I went with wood, and you cut depending on whether you want a Sharpie, a Cooper's hawk, or a goshawk, depends on the diameter of the hole you cut. And then you have a bait bird in the bottom, and they can drop into the hole, but they can't fly out.
So it's like a funnel trap, and they enter from the top?
They enter from the top, and it's literally just a hole cut in the center of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can look down in, and they see the pigeon, and the pigeon can't fly out. They can't fly out.
How can they not fly out?
Because if they try and come out, their wings are spread, so they can't
when they try
fit
and flap,
through the hole.
they can't fit through the hole.
Okay.
They just come up to the hole and just, shoot
Yeah, the
down
box
into it like a bullet.
It's not super tall either. I mean, I think it's probably 2.5 feet tall.
And it's so open. It's all open on the sides, so they're more stimulated to try to get out the sides.
Yeah, they run all around the sides of it, and that's what happened to me. And the person who told me about this trap said a lot of times you got to leave it out there for like a week, and you check it every day. But this place was 2.5 hours from my house, so I couldn't do that regularly. So I went and watched it for 2 days. Had to go back to work, and I decided it was time to get I need one of these birds. I got to get serious somehow. So I called a friend and borrowed a bow net, set up a pigeon. Called my best friend and asked him if he wanted to go sit in the forest with me. And we set up the bow net, and 10 minutes later, I was putting anklets on
Oh my God.
a Tiercel family group goshawk. So I bring him home, and I trained him exactly like I would a red tail, and he trained like a dream. I had my terrier around all the time. Things seemed really great. I thought I was going to do horseback falconry, so I would be feeding him on the lure next to my horses. They could put their nose in his face, and he was chill with it. Everything was going great. Tyler Sladen actually sent me an additional dog because I have a Yag Terrier and I have an English setter that I trained myself, and they're both great dogs. But Tyler wanted to make sure I had enough dog power to do this right, so he sent me up one of his setters. And I'm getting the bird acclimated. It started to, we had baggy training with pigeons. And then I introduced the dogs. And the first time with one dog went really well. The second time when I had 2 setters out, they went on point, popped the pigeon up. He nails it, brings it to the ground. And one of the setters runs over just to look. And it offended him. And he took off, which there were 2 mistakes I made. Number one, probably should have had the dog on the check cord and a helper in the field. Number 2, it was 85 degrees at 7 a.m. And he bumped. He flew up. I grabbed the dogs, put them in the car.
After you beat them, of course.
So I get them in the car, and then I start walking up the canyon. And where I live, it is serious topography. These canyons have massive height differences between them. So I climb up one canyon, he bumps. There's no road access, so I have to keep following him. He bumps down the next one and across a creek where there is a road. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let him be, go back, get in the car. He has telemetry on, dump the dogs off at the house, grab my binoculars and another live pigeon. And I drive around and down the creek. And I see him. I get out of the car. He flies straight up the mountain. And by now it's 105 degrees. I climb 1,500 feet of elevation, get within 300 feet of him. He sees me, flies up and over the ridge, and I'm losing it. And I'm also, I get a little sensitive when it's hot, and I was hot. I was temperature hot, and I was raging. I called Tyler Slade, and I was like, "This bird's gone. He's done for." And Tyler's like, "Well, how long's he been gone?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's probably been like an hour and a half." He's like, "Dude, you can't give up yet." I was like, "I'm not giving up. I'm just giving up right now. It's hot. I'll come back." And so I come back that evening, and radio silence. Can't pick up a thing on telemetry. So I call my friend, ask him if he'll come out and look with me in the morning. He drives the 3.5 hours, stays the night at my place. We get up, 6 a.m., turn on the telly, and from my porch, the signal's just booming. So we get in the car, drive down to where I lost him and I throw a pigeon up on a string and he comes ripping out of the woods. Cool, I got you back. But he never tolerated the dogs again. So I spent a couple months trying to reduce weight, trying to figure out anything I could to get him to work with the dogs. I have game where I live, but I don't have enough game to do it without dogs. Sometimes I'm getting like 2-3 slips in a whole hour, so try doing that. And that's with dogs. Try doing that without dogs, and you may not see a thing for that whole hour that you're out there. So I ended up turning that bird free, and I called a buddy and asked him if he'd help me trap a merlin. And by this time, it's getting close to December, and he told me he was training a prairie falcon, and she had bit him on the lip, and he was thinking about turning her free. And he asked me to try flying one of those, a passage female. And so I flew with her for the rest of the season. I got her following on. I wanted to fly on speculation. She would stay with me for like 8 to 12 minutes.
Speculation? What do you mean by
like looking at an area, you think it's good, but you don't know for certain there's game there. So you're going to go out, you're going to check it out. The dogs are going to hunt. Versus like finding the game, having a dog on point, and then striking the hood. Right. I wanted the bird to be following me. One of my good friends in Central Washington flies a prairie falcon on speculation. His bird will stay with him for like an hour and a half, and it's amazing dog work. And then these really cool stoops on Hungarian partridge, and it seemed so cool. I wanted to emulate that.
That's so neat. Speculation, I didn't know what you meant by speculation. I was like, what do you like? Doing like surveying land corner crossings? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. So when I finished out that season with the prairie, I knew the goal was to get this imprint goshawk this year. So I went out early in March, got my car stuck a couple times in the snow trying to get up to the areas where the goshawks are. And I found my goshawk nest was in a dead tree. What I speculated was about 50 to 60 feet up. It was much, much higher than that afterwards, because I ended up making friends with an arborist, and he told me that it was much higher than that. I wasn't good at guesstimating. So I was on the hunt again. And you guys know...
So you didn't climb it because it was in a dead tree and you were afraid of the tree falling?
Yeah, I didn't want to die up there. There's no cell service or nothing.
Okay, yeah, there's like not really judgment. Remote. The tree was such that you thought, all right, if I'm climbing that, it might just fall over.
Yeah, even the arborist told me he wasn't real keen on trying to help me out and get up there.
That would kill me.
If an arborist says he's not going to climb a tree, then you know it's not safe.
So I start searching again, and 40 to 45 hours more boot time. I've located another nest, and I've seen an adult bird. And like I did a lot of things in preparation for learning. Like I reached out to guys that have done this before. That's something, if I'm interested in something, I'm going to reach out. I am that guy. I'm going to bug you. I want to talk to people who can do something competently and do it successfully with repetition, not just a one-off kind of thing. So, and that goes for everything that I do, my dog work, my falconry. I want advice from people who I can trust. So I reached out, learned what has worked for other people. I decided I was going to do calls. Have you guys heard of Zeno Canto?
No, it sounds like a year somebody was born, right?
Oh, yeah. So it is like built with a medicine. But
a sleep medicine. Yeah, that thing will knock you out for a week, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, it's spelled with an X, and it's a wildlife sound database online where you can download calls from all kinds of animals around the world. So I filtered down, and I was able to find the sound of a goshawk calling from my county. And so I
wait, from your county, like
from my county, yeah.
How? Wow, that's incredible. Okay, what was it called? Xenophobia? What is it?
Zeno Canto. So like XENO-CANTO.
Is that
And-
like just like a website you can just go into and just search like
Yeah.
emus mating call or something?
I've never tried emus, but it's definitely got Merlins, Cooper's Hawks, goshawks, the whole, all the raptors.
That's neat. Okay, you're leading me right into my question that was looming in the back of my mind. So continue.
Yeah. So and then I also went on my Department of Fish and Game website and I looked up research articles from nesting habits and habitat that they've done in the past. Try and give me a good idea of where I want to look, what I'm looking for, and so I have pins dropped all over the mountains around where I live, and I just kept hitting spots and calling out, looking for responses, listening for responses, and looking. Ended up seeing an adult bird that helped me get close. Saw it land on a nest, and I thought, "Oh, I'm in." And I sat and I watched and watched and watched, and nothing's happening. And then it flew off through the woods. So I just decided to find it, and as I follow it, I mean. And as I'm walking through the woods, I end up seeing these tiny little mutes all around a tree. And I look up and like, oh my God, I've already walked past this nest probably 4 times. Like they can be hard to see. And so I step back and up the hill so I can get some elevation. Throw my binoculars up there and I see a little white bird stand up and my heart drops because I'm like, oh no, I'm like late. That's what I'm thinking. So the whole you're going to see a pattern with me of like reaching out and making connections. So my wife started a business last year and she did this whole like Shark Tank thing to get funding. So
Wow.
I had to go to this party right with her and I made friends with an arborist, kind of told him what I was looking into. And he tells me that he's got some climbing gear he'd lend me. Heck yeah. So I call the arborist. I'm like, hey, I'm going to come grab the gaff, right? Spikes. And he gives me a rope and a harness. And I know nothing about climbing trees in this manner. So I do, YouTube University. I hop on there. I'm going to do it myself. Watch a little 15-minute video, and I think I'm the man. Go up the mountains, and I get about 10 to 12 feet up this tree, and I slip and I fall. And I, only fall about 3 feet before the rope catches me and, gives you whiplash and shocks you up your spine. And then I look up the extra 50 or so feet that I think I need to climb. And I'm reevaluating my life at this point. So I climb down, take a deep breather. I realize I'm by myself. And I also didn't tell anybody where I was. And I drive back down into cell service and I call the arborist and I said, hey, man, how interested would you be in seeing a goshawk up close and personal? And he's like, oh, that sounds amazing. I was like, she is going to try and attack you, but she's going to hit you in the face. And he was down. So I go and pick him up. We come back. He makes it look easy. He gets to the top and mom is she smacks him in the face so hard. She tore his shirt down his arms. He comes down the tree and he's like, by the way, that was 77 feet high, not 50. Like, okay, yeah, I'm terrible at guesstimating. And he said, I was planning on cutting the sleeves off of this shirt, but he said, I think I'm going to frame it in my house now because this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Man.
And I got my bird.
Oh my goodness. 77 feet is ridiculous. That's
It's
insane.
high. And like, I have no doubt I can competently learn to climb a tree. Like I want to buy some gear so next time I can do it. If there is a next time, I want to do it myself. But yeah, like the slip and fall and then realizing how much higher I had to go, it was pretty nerve-wracking. Like you got to give credit where it's due. Arborists are next level. That's some insane stuff they're doing up there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm hesitant to share the story, but I got about 15 feet off the ground and then clammed up and became extremely afraid.
Yeah.
Gingerly climbed back down and let somebody else climb. When we were up climbing a nest, and it ended up being the hardest climb of the trip that we were up there. And that was only 58 feet high or 60 feet high. And it was shout out Jimmy G from Rhode Island. The guy can climb a tree. Yeah, I'm not built for climbing, but dude, that's 77 feet. That's insane.
It's crazy. And so he brings, I told him when he was up there, like I knew I wanted a male, but I mean, he's not a falconer. And It can be hard to sex birds in the tree, I'm told. So I told him to look for, the bird that had a head that looked like a golf ball and maybe a little smaller. But I know sometimes the males they grow faster. They could be bigger than the female. So I was resigned to the fact that it was out of my control and I was going to be happy with whatever I got. And with it being a North American, it was going to be smaller anyway. And I do have access to snowshoe hair. So if there was a female, I was definitely going to try and target that. But he brings the bird down, and it's got like paint tip sized tail feathers. So I think it was somewhere between 14 and 19 days old when he pulled it out.
Yeah. I mean, that's perfect. I mean, I think if they're, I'm sure the bird turned out fine.
Oh yeah, we're doing pretty good. So I went with the I got the imprint accipiter book. I went the Mike McDermott way. I taught him to feed with chopsticks first, and then once he was self-feeding, like I would put a piece of cardboard in his nest box and then set the food down on the other side of it. And then as I was walking away, I'd just rip out the cardboard so he'd just find the food. Yeah. And as soon as he could walk, I would have the food on his lure out in the yard. And I just bring him out and set him down. And he'd kind of wander around and he would always find his food until he started flying. And then I also went with hacking. My wife and I got really lucky during COVID with the housing market. We were able to sell our house for way more than we bought it for. And then we moved really remote and we bought a retired equestrian farm that had been vacant for 3 years.
Awesome.
A lowball offer, and were blown away when they said yes. So we got just shy of 21 acres and a indoor horse arena. So
wow, dude.
That became part of his hack unexpectedly for me. It actually wasn't a bad idea. I probably should have just started that way. But what I started with was a couple A-frame ladders and some lawn chairs, and I'd let him hang out. I work evening shifts, noon till 10:30, 4 days a week, 10-hour shifts. And so my office at my house, the window, I could just watch him all day. He had telemetry on. And eventually he started learning to fly up onto my shop and onto my house. And then he chased some robins into the horse arena. That was game over. From that point forward, when I would let him out in the morning, he flew straight into the horse arena and he spent his day chasing robins around inside the arena. We made it 21 days in hack. And I went to, in the evenings, I would go, and if he wasn't chasing the birds, he'd be sitting on the railing and I could walk up and just pick him up. And then I would either have like a baggy type situation with a little, mini mock hunt for him, or I'd have the lure waiting if I was pressed for time or something. But I go to pick him up on day 21 and I noticed the cap and battery to his telly is gone. The little bugger had figured out how to unscrew it and pop it off. And so I decided hack was over at that point. And so we started doing mock hunts every day until season opened. And that's kind of how we started.
That is an incredible story, man. That's.
Where are you at now with him? Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
No, go ahead. If you got specific questions, point the conversation.
Well, I think we both have different ideas. I'm just curious on the current goshawk, where you're at now with him.
Okay.
So that was late summer. Here we are, early winter.
Currently, I've got 2 feet of snow, and all the hunting I'm doing is in snowshoes. Another barrier where I live is I live in the mule deer migratory corridor. So on December 15th, there's 12,000 acres of state land right on my back property line. I've got a pretty sweet setup, but that all shuts down on December 15th. So then the only thing open is the national forest or my private permissions, which I don't have a whole lot of yet because I'm spoiled with all my state access. So I'm building those up, but I'm getting more. So currently we work really hard, and I've got a few spots that are really good. Our numbers aren't exactly where I would like them to be. I feel like I'm putting in a ton of effort for minimum reward. But what Tyler keeps reminding me is like I live in a really hard place and I'm trying to do a hard thing. When I started off this season, my goal was to catch a ruffed grouse, and we still haven't done that yet. But we've caught 3 quail. We just caught a Hungarian partridge last week, and we've caught a couple of rabbits, and we've had 2 incidentals with long-eared owls, unfortunately, but I was able to release them.
Mhm. I've a little diversion. Just I understand that jackrabbits are off limits in Washington. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Why is that?
The numbers are really low. It's not. It's really like the far reaches of eastern Washington where you're going to encounter them. The numbers are particularly low. I didn't even see one until last year for the first time.
Okay.
Wonder why they're so low.
I'm told it's the fragmentation of sage grouse or sagebrush, which is the same reason why sage grouse numbers are low, and sage grouse and sharp-tailed grouse are both also closed in this state.
It's interesting that when you go somewhere like Kansas, you'll find jackrabbits out and just like, cut corn or cut wheat stubble.
Yeah. The other thing I hear regarding sage grouse and sharp-tailed grouse, and I don't know how this would affect the jackrabbits, but the use of insecticides. You drive in certain states and your window just gets obliterated with insects. When you drive through Washington, most places you go, you're not really hitting a lot of insects. And so I believe, and I've been told that could attribute to our reduction in sage grouse and sharp-tailed grouse too.
Yeah, you're probably right. That stuff kills everything.
Yeah.
And then we eat
RFK's
it.
about to ban it.
Yeah, RFK, friend of the show, falconer.
We know you're listening.
He's listening. Big fan of the show. He's going to clean all this up.
Well, one of the things I'm doing is I'm a board member for Northwest Game Hawkers, the director at large, and I'm heading our conservation efforts. So this year, I made contact with the shrub step specialist in Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as the Yakima Training Center. It's kind of in the center of Washington. It's an Army base, and they have thousands of acres and a recreation program. They just had a big fire that burned like 400 acres of sagebrush. So I'm working in conjunction with them. We're going to plant 1,700 sagebrush plants, as well as some bitterbrush, rabbitbrush, and other native flora. And we went and helped them with their greenhouse this fall and built them some raised flower beds, some additional hoop house space. And we're going to put together some water guzzlers, like gravity fed, for the sage area, as well as removing barbed wire fence and putting up the fence markers as well.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, they've agreed to work with us for like the next 2 or 3 years and let us come and help them with projects that they've got going on.
So the club members are involved in that, and you're spearheading it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's what we should be doing as falconers, rather than complaining about feral cats. We should be.
I figure if we're going to take, we can give back. So that's what we're trying to do.
That is impressive. That's goals right there. I would love to see more falconry clubs and falconers being proactive about bettering the sport, or that is in effect bettering the sport. I mean, because we have to have respect for the game that we pursue.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Casey, you said you had a question. I wanted to. I'm super ADHD, so if I don't circle back right now, I'm going to lose it. But yeah, Aaron was interested in where I'm at now, and you said you had a question as well.
Well, like it's not so much of a question, just more of the fact that you found your own nest. I mean, it's just like unheard of these days in most circles. Especially you've been a falconer for 7 years roughly, and it's like the fact that you put so many hours in and miles in trying to find a bird on your own and did it and pulled it off and you did your own research to find methods to find these birds, reached out to people to get information, and that you did it. I mean, that's just like, that's a huge accomplishment. Like a huge accomplishment. And you should be really proud of yourself. And
Thanks, man.
yeah, no, I spend a lot of time looking for nests every spring, and I've only found one in the last 10 years. Different area, of course. But I'm using similar tactics to you. And it's hard, man. It's hard work. And the fact that
it's really hard. I don't know about you, but like I'm running out of favors to call in. Like I get my car stuck a lot in the snow. Are you dealing with snow? Like I'm dealing with a lot of snow, man.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, usually around that time of year, we're dealing with some pretty serious snow trying to get in there. But usually I pick out a location off of like, Onyx or Google Earth. And then I'm just like, whatever. I'm driving 2 hours and 40 minutes to the spot. I'm going to park here if I'm able to. And then I just hike through the snow and play calls, and it's like you see a bunch of owls, a bunch of grouse, and then nothing the whole day, the entire day.
Yeah.
And then you just make your way back. You follow your tracks back to the truck and then you drive home.
And you're exhausted.
And you're exhausted and you really have nothing to show for it other than time in the field and relaxation and a little exercise. And it's just, so many people nowadays, and I'm not saying a lot of people are doing it like yourself, but and I'm on social media, you're on social media, but I get messages from people a lot that are like, I'm going to fly a passage next year. I'm going to fly a imprint next year. I'm just going to go out and find my own nest. And like, that is just like, that's like saying, yeah, I'm going to win the lottery next year. Yeah, no, I don't have to worry about my bills. I'm just going to win the lottery next year. It's like, the odds are pretty close. Yeah. It's hard, man, to find your own nest, even with all the information. And especially if you're looking in a vast landscape with hard terrain like you're dealing with, it's just a huge accomplishment, man. You should be really proud of yourself. And that's so awesome to hear that you did that. You know what I mean? Like, we should find these nests, we should document them, and we should keep track of them so that when they say, oh, there's no goshawks, we want to ban take of eyases or ban the possession of wild taken eyases or passages in a certain state, we can say, no, look at all the list. We have the list right here. We've been documenting it for the last 10 years, but you just didn't know about it. Here are all the nests.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And have that opportunity to do that. So
there's a group of guys here in Washington that had done that in the past. I don't have access to that information, but I've reached out to a few of them to talk to them, try and get even like, I don't want anyone to do the work for me, but just give me something, like help me. Well, like tell me how I can increase my odds. I don't need you to do the work for me. Just give me the tools I need to do the job. I'm annoying that way though. Like I will get fixated on something and I will show up in your inbox and start asking questions, and hopefully in a not annoying way, but I'm persistent in that manner.
There's a guy that I was communicating with a couple years ago from Washington. I believe he was from Washington. He had some pretty badass pictures of him, with climbing gear wrapped around like a 6-foot diameter tree. I believe he was from Washington. He had like long hair, really experienced with goshawks. I can't remember his name. I think he was a Washington State falconer. Do you happen to know him? Do you know him? No.
I don't know that I do.
Okay. But he opened up my eyes, and this was years and years ago. And I'm just like, yeah, North American, Siberian, Finnish. I love goshawks. And then he's like, dude, there's like 6 subspecies in the United States. Have you heard of the Apache goshawk? Okay, you heard of this goshawk, that all in America, like all these different subspecies. And he sent me like a link to like this website that like kind of broke them down a little bit. And I just wondered if you knew him, but yeah, it's just fascinating, man. It's fascinating that there's guys out there still looking for nests, man, because it's like the old guard finds the nests, and then the new generation kind of just like we were talking about earlier with spots, just kind of the craft of finding nests. And I'm definitely not somebody that has the craft down to the science, and I'm definitely piggybacking off of people. But finding your own nest, man, that's a multiple nest too, man. That's very
my
impressive.
Heart sank whenever I showed up to the spot that I found last year, right? And that nest was empty. And so then I'm nervous, but then I know that they have multiple nests. So like I walk all the way down to the bottom of that creek, and I didn't find a thing. Nobody was answering calls. So I crossed the creek and decided, hey, I'm going to walk up the other side, just get a different angle on this thing. And I'm coming back up the creek, and about a quarter mile from the nest I found last year, I see mom sitting. And I feel like that was March 18th. And I'd have to pull out pictures to know for certain, but I don't want to misspeak. But when I saw her sitting on the eggs, it was what I thought would be a little early. And it made me realize how many birds I might have walked by that never answered my call if they're sitting on eggs. Like, they're just not going to make a peep.
That's the other thing. When they're on, they'll be screaming all kinds of crazy stuff. Then as soon as they get on eggs, it's like radio silence. And then as soon as those chicks hatch, then it's like
loud
mayhem, loud again. But like you could walk right under the nest playing a call and she won't make a noise. She's just sitting quiet.
Yeah. And when I looked up and I saw her, first I was, it was like a roller coaster of emotions. Like, oh my God, I found it again. Hell yeah. And then immediately, how the hell am I going to get up there?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this tree looks like it's been struck by lightning.
Right.
And I sent the picture to a couple people I trust. And, one of them is also an arborist, but he lives in Idaho. And he was trying to talk me through ways I might be able to get up there safely. And even potentially he might drive up to help me. But I decided, hey, I've got time anyway. She's sitting on eggs. Like, let's look for another one. So I just started putting in the hours. And hey, actually, now I have 2 nests, So I'm going to do the same thing. Like, I want to find more and more, but I also don't want to be the guy people are like calling to try and get a handout, because if you put in the work and you've done this, it's I don't think people realize how much work it takes.
No, it's ridiculous. It really is. It's insane. It's, like I said, 10 years of driving upstate New York looking for nests, and I only found one, and that was not even mine. I found it on a lead.
Yeah.
It was active like 2 years before, and somebody's like, yeah, it was active 2 years before. It was a secret. Nobody was talking about it. But, so-and-so gave us permission. You're the only guy that's going up there really looking right now. Why don't you go check that spot out? And they dropped a pin. The nest was 300 yards away from the old nest, and she was right there, cacking at me. So, like, I found it, right? But, I didn't really find it. So I'm still not even at your level finding my own. You know what I mean?
Even finding them off of a lead is not a small feat either, though. Like, they can be, unless they're being, like, really loud. That bird, the one I refound this year, I walked right by her the first time.
Yeah.
Like, they're still hard. They're like invisible up there.
Question for you.
Yeah.
So the first nest you found that you trapped your bird off of, the first bird.
Yeah.
How far away was that dead tree that she nested in the second time?
Like a quarter of a mile.
Quarter mile. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's like, the nest was active here, but then it's a quarter mile. It could be a quarter mile radius around that old nest that you knew of where the other nest is. So you can't just give up because that nest is not active. So now you got to grid search that whole area. And if it's the wrong time of year, like you talked about, that there's no noise.
Right.
It's just, it's unless you find the nest visually, it's just so much work. It's ridiculous.
And then I don't know how many times I've saw what looked like a good nest and then realized, I don't know, that could be a raven's nest or something.
Yeah. Or a broadwing or a red shoulder.
Yeah.
Ridiculous, man. Good stuff, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Aaron, what do you want to move into now? Because I have days of questions.
Go ahead with your questions, man. I hit him pretty hard earlier.
All right. So we talked about dachshunds. We're going to get into the dogs a little bit with you. So why do you not, first of all, I have a question for you and you don't have to answer. Well, actually, I don't know if I should ask this question, but.
Oh, hit me with anything. I'll give you my best. Go for it.
So when your bird bumped and was offended by that setter, which setter was it that ran in?
Nobody was at fault, but it was Tyler's dog.
Okay. All right. No, I know. I'm just joking. Tyler, we're just joking. All right. You ran a dachshund and then now you have a yog, no more dachshund.
Yeah, I'll tell you all about that. So
yeah, tell us all about that.
To back up, I owe my entire falconry career to a red tail named Shadow. I got so much love for my first red tail. So I trapped her on August 6th. She was technically hanging out with mom and dad still. She comes down. I'd never had a big raptor like that before, so we started our journey. We did a rabbit drag after she was free flying and whatnot, and I caught 2 rabbits with her by like November. Like I'm working my butt off. I'm showing up to work with like looking like I cut myself, because I'm the dog. And my sponsor flew long wings, but his wife, Sue Hanneman, flew Harris Hawks, and she's a superb falconer. That lady was a big inspiration to me, and she ran the same dogs that Mike Radford has. She had half Yag, half Beagles, and her team crushed it. And so I'm seeing her success, and I'm wanting to emulate that. And my sponsor tells me that there's a guy trying to rehome a falconry dog and that it would make my falconry a lot better. And he tells me it's a dachshund. And I had no experience with dachshunds at all, especially as hunting dogs. And so I took the leap of faith and I bought this dog. It was 3 years old. It had hunted for a year, and then it had been bred for 2 years. And its name was Snowman. It had Aziz on both sides. Does that mean something to you? Okay.
That means the world to me. That's
so I get
the
this
best
dog.
That was like the best dog on the East Coast.
So I get this dog. I'm making my friend. I take him out and start making sure I've got some recall on him, and I throw a bell on him. And within the next like month and a half, we went from we had only caught 2 to suddenly now we're at 12. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Totally changed my falconry career. I am the kind of guy that once I start catching pregnant rabbits, I stop. So my season ended. We stopped at 12. We were done. Second season, we had already caught 25 before Christmas. And at this point, I'm like, hey, I'm almost a general. Like maybe I can start flying something cool is what I thought. And I decided I wanted to fly a Harris Hawk. So I traded this, not traded, I handed off this red tail to a lady in Idaho who wanted to fly red tails. And I get this Harris Hawk. And it's working with the dachshund. Everything's cool. We finish up our season, and then I put him away for the molt. I'm out mowing my yard one day, and he freaks out and he broke his leg. And I ended up having to put him down, and I was tore up about it. And then I'm missing Shadow. So I call up the lady in Idaho, and I say, hey, how's she doing? She's like, well, she pulled feathers on a rooster pheasant, but we're not catching any, and I don't have the rabbits I thought I did, so I'm thinking about getting a goshawk. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll take her back if you don't want her anymore. So I get her back, and Snowman one night jumps off of the couch, walks across the floor sideways, and then falls over. I'm like, what the heck? As I pick him up, he's not shaking or anything, but, seizures can present in that way as well. A little bit of time goes by, and then he tries to get up and just go to sleep. And so I take him into the vet, and we believe that he had a stroke. I'm certain he had a stroke, not a seizure, because he had a field cut in his vision. So he could only see halfway across his eye. From center to the right, he could see, but he had a left field cut. And he also had ataxia, so he couldn't, his depth perception and proprioception of where he's placing his feet, he had a really hard time walking. So I get him out in the field, and the dude, half blind and still not walking right, we still caught 2 more rabbits before the end of the season. But there's nothing you can do about a stroke. That's never going to come back for him. So I retired him into a pet home. He is fat. I get pictures all the time. He's still blind and has trouble walking. But I started looking for another dog. And it was at this point in my hunting career, I realized I live in Washington. I want to hunt some birds too. So I wanted a dog that could not only flush rabbits, but could do some retrieves, maybe do some tracking. So I started looking into the standard sized wire haired dachshunds, and I was looking into the Yag Terriers and also the field bred English Cockers. And so I went and hunted behind each of those breeds with people that I knew were competent hunters. And I spent a little bit of time hanging out with them outside of hunting as well to figure out like which one meshed with me the best. And I have love for the field bred Cockers. Absolutely respect them. And at the time, I was going through a little bit of depression myself. And the dog was just so damn happy. He was just needy and like wanted to crawl inside your skin. And I knew I did not have the energy and love inside of me to feed back into that. And misery loves company, man.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want that happy little dog hanging out with sad old me. And then I hung out with this Yag Terrier that just wants to kill everything, not in a psychotic way. It was a very good Yag Terrier that was very biddable and a esteemed hunter, but it just had this I want to kill stuff attitude, and that seemed to fit better with me. And so I started reaching out to the guys that have Yags that I look up to, dogs that I've seen hunt competently, and started asking around who I needed to contact, and made contact with a breeder in Texas, and got in line for a dog. Got Ranger to my house and started well before I had the dog. I was reaching out to every dog handler I knew of that had experience with Yag Terriers. I was bugging the hell out of Chad Reynolds, Tyler Sladen, Corey Miller. I have a lot to say thank you for those guys because they really helped me along the way. And started training Ranger. By 3 months, he was tracking rabbits, and I had my first rabbit kill with my red tail over him at 3 months old. And I was dumping time into him. He flushed and retrieved his first pheasant with a shotgun at 5 months old. Just dynamic dog. He has a hotter nose than the dachshund. The dachshund was a better tracker.
All right, thanks for coming on, Josh.
There we go. But that being said, the style and speed of the Yag Terrier, especially if you're only running one dog, which I'm only running one flushing dog, it moves faster and he covers a lot more ground. When he does start voicing, I know we're pretty close. We're nearly on top of it, and I can tell the difference between his vocalizations about kind of what's happening in the field.
Yeah,
help me, direct me. Where do you want me to go from here?
No, that's great, man. It's good stuff. Yeah. So when you say that his nose was hotter, the dachshund would track further, but the Yag, when the scent was hotter, he was on it better.
Yeah, that and Snowman was tracking a rabbit.
Right.
He smells this rabbit and he's going to take me to that rabbit. Whereas Ranger, if he's tracking something, but he comes across a hotter trail, he's going to abandon that colder one for the closer one.
Right.
Which I know the dachshunds will do that too, and they all get savvy, but it was noticeable between the two.
Okay. Good. Yeah, no, I've heard that. And so I would imagine, because there's like, and I we talked about this like ad nauseum with the Yags and my personal view on them in the beginning, and then having my opinion changed through Tyler and Chad and stuff like that. Former guests of the show, Chad Reynolds, Tyler Sladen, they run Yags, and they're from a separate line that is less for the killing aspect and more for the nose and biddableness of that particular line. So I would imagine you consulted them before getting yourself on a list from a breeder.
Absolutely. In the falconry community of Washington, Yag Terriers had a bad reputation.
Tell us about the bad reputation.
I can't confirm this, but the rumors are there was a Yag that killed another dog.
Okay.
There was a Yag that couldn't be trusted around the hawk.
Right.
And so the rumor is that was when people started doing the crosses. And I can't speak to that. That's all, rumor, but it's believed.
Right.
And so I had seen what these dogs are capable of through what Tyler and Chad were doing. And I went with a breeder that they use. And my personal goal was to make Ranger, is the name of my dog, be a representation of what this breed is capable of when trained and when coming from great. When someone has bred for very specific characteristics.
Right.
And I believe I've accomplished that because there are a lot of people who've told me they've changed their mind about Yag Terriers. I bring him to all the Washington falconry meets from both clubs, and he gets used under multiple people's birds. He has excellent manners on a kill. His recall is impressive. He has good handling. He's a good ambassador for the breed.
It's good, man. Yeah, it's awesome. Have you noticed that you have to have a little bit of a stronger hand with that breed than the Dachshund?
It's completely different. The Dachshund is so nose-minded. I feel like you're worrying about different things with the dogs. With the Dachshund, I'm worried about him running off on a scent, and he has a purpose and a job that he's doing, and I'm not keeping up with him, you know? Whereas, and he's hunting rabbits. That's the other thing. The Dachshund's hunting rabbits. The thing about Ranger is when I take Ranger out, I might be hunting rabbits, I might be hunting pheasant, whatever. Ranger's just hunting. And he's going to go after and flush whatever game is in the area. So if we're looking for rabbits, but there's ducks, he's going to flush those ducks and then come back for rabbits too. Pheasant, and he'll get involved in whatever is available to him. He is not dog aggressive. I can set him down with any dog, but he is very much one of those F around and find out dogs. He is reactive. So if a dog is not respecting his boundaries, he will react to that. And it's always proportional. Like, he's not the kind of dog that's going to just attack a dog for no reason. And if there isn't, like, it's just not an issue for me, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is like, people talk about it like it is. But if Ranger gets involved in something like that, there was a reason.
Right.
He's not some senseless killer that's the picture people painted for me. When I told them I was getting a Yag, they're like, don't trust it around your kid. Meanwhile, my neighbor's dog charged my daughter, and Ranger folded it up in the driveway and then walked away. It's like, he's not some senseless killer.
Yeah.
He's got purpose. Not a killer. Yeah. He's a hunting dog.
No, he'll kill. No, trust me, he'll kill.
Yeah, rabbit.
I'm sure. Yeah, he'll kill a rabbit. He'll kill a rabbit. He's like, no, that's good. Yeah, because they do have a reputation, and there's a couple guys, not so many, but there's a particular on social media where it's a little bit of a shit show, and it's like you said, the ambassador is not a good representation of the breed. And the birds grab it. The dog's grabbing the jackrabbit, then it's grabbing the hawk, then it's grabbing the jackrabbit, then it's grabbing the hawk, and it doesn't know which one to grab first. And the owner's screaming his brains out, and I'm just like, what the hell? Like, what the hell are we doing? Like, why do we have these? Why are we using this dog in this? In this sport?
Ranger can be tracking a rabbit, come upon the hawk on the rabbit, and immediately like, nope, I'm out. He has so much respect for the hawk. My red tail, when he was a puppy, taught him one time, if you get too close, I'm going to grab you. And I'll also, I would sit down with him and have the hawk on the glove. And if he got too close, I'd have a really low level stimulation and be like, hey, a check. It'd be no different than just grabbing his collar and pulling him back. That's how low of a sensitivity I would have on him. But just hey, you can't do that. Don't pay attention to the hawk. Yeah. And he has excellent manners on hawks, falcons, doesn't matter to him. Not that I leave him unsupervised, but I could put my goshawk out to weather, and he has a bubble around the bow perch. He's not going to come within.
Yeah.
Sounds like Yog propaganda to me.
No, they're like I said, Tyler and mostly Tyler, we got in a little beef over it, and we actually had a phone call about it together. And it was a little bit of a heated phone call, and he broke it down for me. He educated me about it. And after that, and then seeing Chad's dogs and then other stuff, and I'm all right. Maybe I misjudged the breed.
got a story for you.
Go ahead.
This has happened 3 times on 2 different occasions. A friend of mine with a peregrine setting up a training exercise with a chucker. Chucker gets away, and I asked him if he wants the bird back. He says, yeah. I send Ranger out. Ranger flushes the bird, tracks it till it puts in, and then they can't fly as well the second time. He brings the bird back alive. He's done it 3 times.
It's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely say that if Ginger did that, Ginger, I don't know if she could do that, but if she could do that, she would just kill it for sure. Yeah, she would just kill it.
Yeah, but I think that comes from like instilling self-discipline within the dog, giving it not only like an understanding of what the rules are, but also the confidence to know like, hey, this isn't the only time you're going to see that bird, man. We're going to go hunt more. Like you're going to have more opportunities.
Yeah.
And that comes through exposure and repetition and consistency.
That's good stuff, man. And then the setter. So what's the deal with the setter?
So I would fly my red-tailed hawk every other day. And then I started doing upland bird hunting on the other days, but with shotgun. And I just fell in love with that and decided I wanted to try my hand at a pointing dog. So Ranger was 5 months old at that time and just kicking ass. And so I ended up getting a setter, brought it home, and a couple of days in, my wife tells me, hey, I think this dog is deaf. And I'm like, no way, you know? And so I come in, I'm clapping she's asleep, and I'm clapping my hands, I'm screaming at her, and the dog, I mean, she's just like Sleeping Beauty over there, not even moving. So I call the breeder, who's also a friend of mine. And he's like, well, hey, how do I make this right? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. What do you think we should do? And he said, bring her back and I'll give you a replacement. And my wife says, like, no way, I love this dog, you know? And then also she starts, you know, stroking my ego. She's like, what, you don't think you could train a deaf dog? And so now I'm like, I could train a deaf dog, you know? And then I talked to a few of the guys. Like I said, I reached out to the guys that are good at this and start telling them what I'm doing. And, you know, pretty much everyone told me, you know, like, give the dog back and get one that, you know, you're not going to have to struggle so hard for, especially with it being your very first pointing dog. I've never trained a pointing dog. I decided to go with it. Like, if you tell me I can't do something, it stokes the fire for me. And I wanted to prove everybody wrong. So
you can't go to our website and buy one of every shirt.
I mean, if you got hoodies, I will buy a hoodie.
We have hoodies.
We do have hoodies. They're in stock, ladies and gentlemen. We got hoodies in stock.
Yeah. So I trained her to recall to vibrate on the collar. And then I started setting up hunting simulations with a bird launcher. And I used the Perfection Kennels training method. I bought the DVDs, watched them, studied them, put it into practice, and just kind of modified it where I had to because of her disability. And when it came to time to start teaching the whoa command, which for a lot of people is a verbal command, I put a second collar on her belly. And when I wanted her to whoa, I would vibrate that one, taught her what that meant. And for the first season and half of last season, she still had to wear that collar, but this season she's not wearing it at all. And dude, she has entered her prime now. She's 3. This dog is impressing me daily. Like, I went from she's pointing, there might be a bird here, or it might be another 100 yards ahead of us, or maybe it was here last night, I don't know. And you come up to these empty points, and now if she's on point, there's a bird there, and I trust it. And I walk up, and my goshawk knows that too, to the point where I'm doing a little bit of behavior modification with him because he's figured out the point. And it takes me a while to walk up in snowshoes, so he can see her on point, and he's just getting all amped up on the glove. And if I can't get there fast enough, sometimes he'll run over there and whack her and then try to crawl in where she's pointing. And then, of course, they blast out of the other side. So,
Poor dog doesn't even know what's going on.
No, she has no clue. Like, Ranger is so savvy. It's really hard for him to get hazed or whacked. Like, he learned his lesson with the red tail. He always has an eye on the hawk, you know?
Yeah.
But the Gravy, poor thing, doesn't know it. All of a sudden, whack. And he doesn't bind to her or anything, but he just snacks. Yeah. And so, like, I do not hold him back because, I mean, his eyes are better than mine. And there's been a lot of times he'll see a covey of something scuttling off, and I don't even know what's happening yet. And so I don't hold him back. I let him go chase when he's ready to chase. But when my dog is on point and he has clear view of her and we're still like 50 yards back, I've started holding on to him till we get closer. And then I send Ranger in to flush, and he's free to chase whenever he wants. So we're doing all of our hunting now. I don't have cottontails where I live, and the snowshoe hare are in high elevation. It's very steep. I would need a snowmobile to get back there, or it's going to be a really long snowshoe walk, which, I mean, I've done it with a shotgun, but I don't know that my goshawk would have the patience for that. So we're not chasing snowshoe hare. So everything right now is quail and Hungarian partridge. All the water's frozen over, so I don't have access to duck unless I travel. Plus, there's the influenza going on. And then an hour and a half to hour and 45, I could get into cottontails if I want to go chase those. But I've got enough quail and partridge around the house that we're just struggling through it. We're getting a lot of chases in, not a whole lot of catches yet, but he's learning. And this year is all about our field craft. Getting him, he handles beautifully, he recalls beautifully, he chases hard, and we're doing our best this year, and next year is just going to be better.
Yeah, you're making an investment in the second season. Good stuff, man. Dude, I remember I went on a date one time, a double date when I was in college with this deaf girl and my friend. And it was really awkward. They picked me up from the house. My buddy's like, this girl I'm going with, she's got a friend. You want to come? I'm like, yeah, I'll come with you guys. So I go out with them. I jump in the car. I'm in the front seat. Two girls are in the back seat with my boy Danny. And we're driving to the city. We're driving to New York. Going to go to the meatpacking district, hit some bars and, clubs or whatever. And so, me, Mr. Chatty Cathy, I start trying to talk to the girl in the back seat. I'm like, hey, what's up? What's your name? No answer, no nothing. So I look at my buddy. I'm like, dude, what the heck is this?
What's wrong with this broad?
I'm like, what's wrong with this broad? So then he texts the girl in the back seat. She texts him back, and she texts him, and she goes, she's deaf. And then he shows me the text message, and then I start laughing. Obviously she can't hear me, so I start laughing. I'm like, and she was a very attractive girl. So I'm like, all right. So then we went to a martini bar to pregame. And, I'm trying to talk to her, like her friends, like, talking to her, and she can read lips or whatever. So I'm like, what are you doing? What are you studying in Montclair? Whatever. So anyway, long story short, we end up drinking more martinis than we should have. Then we go to this very high end club in the meatpacking district. One shot of Patron was $47. I'll remember it for the rest of my life.
Oh,
$47 for a shot of Patron in the meatpacking district. This girl is wasted, okay? And she's dancing on the dance floor. And then I asked her friend, I said, how, she's deaf or whatever, but how could she hear the music? And then she goes, no, she feels the vibrations of the subwoofers or whatever. So, but she's like completely drunk, right? So then she's so drunk, she's like tripping and like kind of falling. I'm trying to like dance with her, whatever. I'm 20 years old, whatever. She ends up knocking into some guy and like spilling his, probably $70 drink on the ground. And then all of a sudden, this big bouncer just comes up behind her and just grabs her in a chokehold.
What the hell?
Yeah, bro. Like, I'm like, dude, you're not bouncing in Patterson, New Jersey, bro. We're in the meatpack. Grabs her by her throat, picks her up. So I grab him. Then the other bouncer grabs me, and I'm like, felt bad for her. So I try to grab the bouncer and like tell him she's deaf, she's drunk, whatever. And the other bouncer grabs me. I'm trying to freaking like judo toss him. And then I finally grabbed him. I was like, yo, the girl is deaf, dude. Like, I'm not trying to fight you. Like, she's deaf. Like, she doesn't know, like, she can't hear you. So he's like, doesn't matter. You all got to leave. So it's January in New York City, winds whipping through the buildings. I go outside. I'm wearing a V-neck, with the freaking necklace, the chain. I got a skin, like a very skin tight leather jacket on that's like paper thin, from Macy's on sale.
Man, I bet you look cool.
No, I look good, bro. I was a cutie pie back then. And So we go out on the sidewalk. She's like crying and like drooling. I'm like trying to talk to her. She can't hear me. My boy Danny comes out like 20 minutes later with this girl. And they're like, yeah, yo, we're going to go get the car. Just stay right here. We're going to get the car. Dude, it's 10 degrees outside, wind whipping. I don't know if you've ever been in New York City in the middle of the winter. It's the wind picks up in between those buildings and just freaking whips through there. So I have my jacket on her back. She's freezing, drooling, throwing up all over the floor. Then Danny and this girl come back like 45 minutes later. The windows are all, foggy, handprints everywhere. And then I put this girl in the car, and he drops me off at home. I said, bro, thanks for a good time, bro. Whatever, like 4 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, every time I hear anybody talk about anything deaf, I just that story pops in my mind. So I figured I'd share it with the audience.
I appreciate that.
The classic.
It was a classic story. College days.
Dude, Gravy sleeps so hard. You walk in, like she doesn't even know. You can you can sneak up on her so easy. But like, funny you said that something about a deaf scream. Like when someone's deaf, you can hear it in their voice. She barks like a deaf dog, man. Like when she barks, it just doesn't sound right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, Josh, is there anything that we didn't cover with you?
Oh man. So last week we had our best hunt so far. I got this spot where there's quite a few Huns. They're really challenging for North American goshawks, I'm told, in comparison to the Eurobirds that have that higher top speed and endurance. But we started off with Ranger flushed 3 partridge, and my bird rips down this canyon after them. A few hundred yards, I can't see him. The dogs are already moving ahead. I get a point alert. And I'm trudging, with my snowshoes. And I get up and I see that Gravy's on point. And I can see that my goshawk is on some sagebrush on the other side of the canyon looking down, maybe within 50 yards. And so I'm trying to walk down there and get Ranger put in position. And these 10 quail get up. It wasn't even the partridge. And these quail shoot back up where we came from, and he chases them. So I chase back up to where he's at. He's sitting on this tree on the side of the hill. I get him on the glove. I walk up, and I'm getting Ranger and Gravy down into the drainage, and he sees the quail before they flush, and they weren't on the ground. They were in this short tree, just like, maybe 5 feet off the ground, and the dogs are walking under them. The goshawk rips off my glove and just slams through this tree. The quail takes off, and he chases after it, and it's got a little bit of a lead on him. So we go back down the drainage. I get up with some elevation, and I can see he's sitting on an irrigation pivot up above the drainage. And I'm getting ready to call him when he flies across the drainage to the other side of the canyon and then just does this wing over down. He had seen the covey of partridge on his own. So I climb up there. He didn't have one. He's, pissed off on the ground. And I watch where the Huns are putting in. There's this long irrigation ditch next to a hayfield, rows. So I get him back on the glove. I call Ranger to heel, and I let Gravy run ahead. So we trudge across the hayfield. I get up on the levee for the irrigation ditch, and Gravy's running down the rows, and she locks up on point. So me and Ranger are walking in, and the goshawk is like vibrating on the glove. He's leaned forward. He's half cocked, ready to go. And I grabbed the jesses because I didn't want him to go too soon, because that's happened before. And when we get within like 15 yards of him, I send Ranger in. And Ranger runs down into the rows where Gravy's on point, and the goshawk bolts off the glove. The Huns had moved through the rows along the ditch, and 2 of them had come out of the end and were trying to run away. And when they see the goshawk come in, they take off and fly. He's just screaming after them in air. A third one gets up between him and the 2 he's chasing, and he smokes it. Takes it to the ground. They're fighting, there's feathers, and it kicks free. And my heart just like sinks to my knees. because this is the second time that's happened where he's caught one, and these Huns fight so hard they'll kick free, and I have to go to work. So I don't know if this translates to him, but I decided I'm going to reward this, right? Like, dude, that was an awesome flight. You just grabbed this Hun midair, brought it to the ground. So I throw the lure down. He flies over, pull out my plate. I dump all the tidbits on there. I got nothing in my pocket. He's eating up, and I look down. Gravy's laying down next to me like she always does. Ranger is normally there too, but I hadn't been hunting him quite as much this week since we've been targeting quail so heavy, and Gravy does better there. So I let him work, thinking I'd just call him back when I'm ready to leave. Well, the Huns, when they flew, they had went up and over this big hill. I thought they were long gone. The bird finishes eating. I'm just about to pick him up, and I hear Ranger scream like he does when he's flushing something or tracking. And I look up the hill, and I hear the sounds of Huns. And the covey is flying back down the hill, screaming right at us. It's like they were going to put into that same cover one more time. When they get within 15 or 20 yards of us, my goshawk jumps off of that plate and starts flying head on at them. They flare, and a group of them go off to the left. One goes off to the right, and one tries to build a cover and just slams it, takes it to the ground, and he holds on to it this time. I'm like ecstatic, like I'm freaking out. I'm so excited, but I know I get excited. So I didn't want to just run in too fast, and he doesn't carry at all. So I didn't want to make in too quickly and then have him try and drag it off or fly off with it, especially with a belly full of tidbits. So I'm taking my time, walking up. As he's plucking, I'll get a little closer. If he looks at me at all, then I give him another second. And then it starts fighting with him again. And at that point, he takes both feet and he's just grabbing it, putting it with both feet. And I walk in, and one of its wings is flapping. So I grab it by the wing. And then he looks at me. And there was a moment where I didn't know how he was going to react, but he was totally chill. So I just reached in. He doesn't grab my bare hand ever, but occasionally if he's pissy, he might take a stab at the glove. He doesn't bind to it or anything, but I reached in with my ungloved hand and I broke its neck. And then I peeled back the breast meat, and I let him eat half a breast. And then I ripped off a leg, and he traded over to the leg easy peasy. It was just beautiful. It's been the highlight of our season so far.
Jeez, that's
you're going to have a hard time ever topping that.
I was just thinking the same thing. That's the highlight of your season. That's the highlight of many people's whole falconer career. Trading your bird off, eating on the trade-off piece, and then just spontaneously catching another slip as it's unfolding in front of you with a full belly of tidbits. That's phenomenal, man. That's a great story.
Oh, thanks, man.
Dude, you're kicking ass, man, out there. You're on snowshoes. You're finding goshawk nests. You're catching Huns. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, man.
I appreciate it, man. We're definitely working hard for it, and I can't wait. I just got this problem. I need to live in the moment, but I just can't wait to see what next year is going to bring, because next year he's going to know the deal. And I want to catch a grouse so bad.
Yeah.
And they fly so hard, and they're great at flying through cover, which so are the goshawks. He's going to get one, but I can't wait till it happens.
I look forward to that.
You ought to mount it when you do.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, unless he plucks the crap out of it before you get there.
Yeah. Charge in there. Get it.
Just rip it away from him. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Awesome. That was great, Josh. Thank you. Wait, before we go, I have one more question for you. I'm an EMT. I was an EMT, licensed EMT. My wife is a nurse. You were a trauma nurse.
Yeah.
In the ER. What was the most gruesome thing that you've seen?
Okay. You got time for a story? We're doing a real one here?
We're ready.
Okay. All right. So we are the busiest ER in the state of Washington. We're a level 2 trauma facility. Harborview is in Seattle, and it's a level 1, but they don't get the foot traffic we do. I had a 3.5 to 1 patient ratio. So what that means is I had 3 rooms dedicated to me and 1 room that I shared with another nurse. So the comm nurse calls me and says, "Hey, you're getting a new patient in room 604, and it was a attempted overdose." So I asked my partner, who's this little old lady, like, "Hey, can you intake this patient?" She's like, "Yeah." Her name was Sue, and she's super sweet. So I'm at the same time getting a chest pain patient in 605. So I go in, I introduce myself to this nice couple, chatting him up, getting his history, drawing his blood, right? And all of a sudden, I hear a slam against the wall, and I hear someone say, "Oh, fuck, he has a knife." And I looked at the dude, and I capped off the blood I was drawing, pulled the needle out of his arm, slapped a gauze on there and some tape, and I said, "I gotta go." And I walk out. I walk into room 604, and I see security. Um, and security was in the room because in our hospital, if you come in for behavioral health issues, we have a specific color of scrubs you have to wear, and that lets everybody that works there know this person can't leave, right? So my partner had decided this guy was acting calm. He was oriented and answering questions. We were no longer going to keep him in the spice colored scrubs, and he did not need to be in restraints because he arrived in restraints. He had been checked by fire and he had been checked by police. So weapons were not on the mind, right?
Right.
So my partner decided he was going to change. So she called security to watch him change, which is just protocol. This kid, he was 23, realizes this is his last chance to take his life. He reaches into his underwear, pulls out a knife, and slits his throat. Wide open. So that's what happened before I walked through the door. So now I come through the door, and what do I see? But the kid has security pinned against the wall. Security has the kid's hand in the air with the knife in it, and the kid is spewing blood on my security officer. I sprint into the door and I tackle the kid down. Security rips the knife away from him, and I put my hand on his throat. And he throws an elbow. At the time, I had some glasses on. He knocks my glasses off. I'm fighting to save his life. He is fighting me to let himself die, right? The doc runs in, another nurse runs in. We're pinning this kid to the ground. I've got pink, foamy blood coming up between my fingers. I'm choking him to try and put pressure on the wound, but I can't squeeze too hard because I don't want to actually choke the kid to death. And they're rushing to get sedation, right? So they come in, somebody pops the kid with a sedative. It seems like it's taking forever for this to work. Finally, he stops flinching and flexing, and then I get a tap on my shoulder, and there's a paramedic from the ambulance bay who heard everything going on, and he's got a kit in his hand for me to start a large bore IV, right? Because we just lost a lot of blood. And he's like, "Hey, do you want me to hold the throat?" And I'm like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm a paramedic." I'm like, "Yeah, get up here." And so he gets up there, and now he's holding pressure on the wound. I'm in this kid's pool of blood on the floor in my hands and knees because we knocked the stretcher. We were fighting. We knocked everything all around the room. So I get an 18 gauge in his arm. We start blood and fluids, and then we get the kid up on the stretcher. Meanwhile, like the charge nurse has already called a full trauma, right? So now we get this cocky surgeon comes ripping through the door, and she's like, "Well, it looks like you guys got it handled. Why are we here?" And I grab the paramedic's hand and I pull it off, and blood just right across the room. And she's like, "Okay, let's get him up to the OR. Let's get him intubated, And so we get the kid intubated, the blood transfusion's going, and they did a quick stop by imaging, right? And then they take him up to the OR. I step out of the room and I haven't seen myself. Like I look like the murder victim once I looked in the mirror. So I had to go take a quick shower in the decon room, put on surgical scrubs, and that's when I realized I've still never sent off the blood from the first guy with the chest pain. So I go grab his blood, and then I come back and I sit down, and this woman comes strutting across the hallway. She says, "You came into my husband's room and said you were going to send off a urinalysis. We've had pee in the cup for half an hour," because we were in there for a while, right? Getting all of this stabilized and situated. And I looked at her and I said, "I did not tell you any of that." I said, "But if there's urine in the room and there's a doctor's order, I will get it sent off. Give me just a moment to get caught up on my documentation." She turns around and walk away. And one of my friends, one of the other nurses, looks at me because he knows everything that just happened. He said, "Dude, you're a better nurse than me." He's like, I would have just flipped out. And my charge comes up to me. She's like, "How much time do you have left on your shift?" And I was like an hour and a half. She's like, "Do you want to go home?" Like, "No, I've still got an hour and a half left at this point. Like, let's just finish it out." That hospital is wild. I had I got another one that's just as good as that one.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. This is awesome. Go ahead.
Okay. So we have this position in the ER called a CRN, which is your circulating nurse. And that's the nurse who goes around and makes sure everybody gets their breaks. And this nurse has to be trained in every position. That way you can cover the trauma bays, you can cover triage and the greet desk. So that was doing that role one night. And I go out to the greet desk, which is my least favorite place to be. The greet desk is where if you walk into an ER, it's the first place you go to tell them for the very first time why you're there. And that's where everybody has to sit in the lobby and they're pissed off because we have super long wait times at our ER because of how busy we are. So I go out and I ask the greet nurse if she needs to take a lunch. She's supposed to be gone 30 minutes. Okay, cool. I can sit out here for 30 minutes and let people bitch at me. That's fine. And so I'm sitting there, and then security comes and says, "Hey, there's a car that just pulled up in the parking area in front of the doors, and we think somebody's drunk." So I grabbed my med tech and I said, "Hey, let's grab a wheelchair." He said, "This guy's laying down. Let's go pick him up." So I walk out to this car, and the guy in the front seat will not speak to me. I'm like, okay, this is weird. I open the back door, and there's a dude laid out in the seat. There's blood everywhere, and he's unconscious. So I reach in and I feel for a pulse, and it's weak and thready. And the dude's cold and clammy and covered in sweat. And so I grab his arm, I throw it over my shoulder, and I haven't seen the wounds yet, right? I'm looking on the right side of his body. So I pick him up on my shoulder and I turn around and I put him into this wheelchair, and he slips right out of it. I'm like, oh my God. So I throw him over my shoulder, fireman's carry, and I start running into the front doors of the ER. And we had this stretcher past the very first checkpoint where we do EKGs. I plop the guy onto the EKG stretcher. I tell my med tech I need a trauma bay now. And she gets on the phone so we can figure out where we're going. And I'm pushing this guy through all of our pods. We have 6 pods in our ER. I go through the first pod and I see all of the nurses at the desk look up at me and say in unison, "Holy shit." And we rip by. She tells me we're going to Bay 608, which is like the big one. So I get him in there, and when I lay him down on the bed, that's for the first time when I see this massive open gash across his neck. And his shirt is split open on his forearm with a huge cut to the bone, which I'm immediately like, okay, that's defensive posturing.
Yeah,
like
machete. It was a machete for sure.
Yeah, it actually, it was a machete.
Of course, yeah.
But he's got multiple. It wasn't like 2 hits, like someone hacked him, right? Oof. So we're getting IVs into this guy. We're getting him connected to everything. And I realized, like, oh man, I'm supposed to be relieving the greet nurse. Like, there's nobody out front. She's on a 30-minute break. So I turned to walk out, and the doctor asked me if I've looked at a mirror since I started all of this. And I'm like, no. And I turned around in the mirror and like, yeah, I'm smeared. Where I threw him fireman's carry, he was bleeding on me. So like I had his blood all down the side of my face. It looked like war paint, and like my scrubs that I tossed them, like they were saturated. And they put over 1,000 stitches in that guy up in the OR. We found out the driver was the getaway driver. He had broken into a house he was on the 2nd floor when the homeowner found him, took a machete to him, and he jumped out of the window.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah. SWAT come in one time, and there was a DV case. The woman had been cut by her husband with a kitchen knife. She like cut across her arm, and then they pretended, of course, that like it was a cooking accident, and the husband was still with her. He had warrants for his arrest. So when the neighbors at the apartment called it in, police didn't even let us know they were coming. They swarmed, and I was helping one of the nurse practitioners do stitches in the adjacent room. And she needed another suture kit. I go to open the door, and there's a cop standing there with his handgun, and he points it at me, and he said, "Get back in the fucking room." I'm like, "Oh, well, okay." And so I get back in the room, I shut the door, and the other side of that room was a glass window with a curtain, but it's that like foggy kind of glass. And so I walk over there, I pull the curtains, turn the computer off, and flip the lights off because I don't know what's going on yet. I don't know it's a DV situation. I think it's like an active shooter situation. So I don't want to cast a shadow. And so I turned around to the nurse practitioner and the patient, and I said, "There's police in the hallway with handguns and AR rifles," because there were I could see other officers with their rifles. I said, "I don't know what's going on, but I'm not getting shot. And these walls are really thin. It's just drywall." So I lay down on the ground. The nurse practitioner and the patient come and lay down with me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then we hear the door rip open. He starts screaming all the cliche stuff. "I'm not going to jail," or whatever. But, they arrest him and get him out of there. But yeah, it's an exciting place to work. And we're really close to the Navy base and the Puget Sound. So there's tons of like drowning victims that come in all the time. And then we do these massive like CDI trainings, like that's crap. I can't remember what it stands for. Like massive casualty incidents, MSIs or something. Anyway, they set these things up with like the county sheriff's office, the hazmat teams, the SWAT teams, and then also the Army base. They all get in on it. And then they hire like actors and such to portray what's going down. And so when I was going through my residency at the ER department in the hospital, we were supposed to go and observe this, right? Like, I don't know anything yet. I'm just like a student here.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching, I've got a clipboard, and this one patient comes in that's got like her leg is halfway cut off. Not, it's just, we're portraying it. It's not real, but we're supposed to pretend like it is. And we've got tags for like, if you're dead, you put like a black one on them. Can they walk? Or it's like the walking wounded, and they have all these terms for it. But this one's like the real deal. So I walk over to observe, and this ER doc looks at me and he says, "I need you to put a tourniquet on now." And I look at him and I'm like, and I was going to say, "I'm just watching," but no, he snaps me. He's like, "You're just what?" And I said, "Putting on a tourniquet," tourniquet on his leg. It ended up being the best one to like be standing next to, because there was this half amputation, and then there was another one where the explosion had sent rebar through their stomach. So I got to follow that case all the way to OR. So we do like some education stuff at our hospital too, but we're not like UW. We're not an educational hospital, but there's a lot of students and training that go on at our hospital.
Man, it's to be honest with you, hearing you tell those stories, it sounds like you miss those days, because now you're doing a lot of paperwork, you said, right?
Oh yeah, ton of paperwork. So I was in the ER for a little over 5 years. 3.5 of that was on the floor in the trauma bays. And then I got promoted to assistant manager, and I had 99 employees directly under me. And COVID happened. Right. And I was working these long, crazy hours. Information in the beginning was changing like every hour and a half too, where we were changing company policy and like having to tell people to do things the opposite way of what we just told them to do a couple hours ago. It was really straining personally, and it was really straining professionally. And then I was bringing it home, working these long hours, and I told my wife, like, I got to do something different. I started looking up remote jobs. And in the hospital, there's a department called utilization management, and they review charts for inpatient necessity versus observation. And it's a federally required position for a hospital to have, to make sure that the hospital stay in compliance with Medicare. So like my job is secure. It's going to stay remote. and I look at charts all day. So I still get to read about all of the cool stuff. But yeah, there's times when I miss it. But the way I've been phrasing it lately is I'd rather be bored at home than stressed at work.
Right.
Because like I found myself having compassion fatigue. I was getting really cynical. You see the worst of people in their darkest times.
Yeah.
The drug epidemic is a really big deal here. And it just got really hard seeing people come in with amputations and strokes and their family having heart attacks. And then to try and bring that same compassion to the guy that's got tummy aches because he's in heroin withdrawal. I just found myself not caring to the degree that I thought the patients deserved.
Right.
And I thought it was a good time for me to step back from patient care.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a rough. Yeah. My mom's a nurse for 40 years. My sponsor's wife is a nurse in a very busy hospital. My wife is a nurse. So, I hear that it can be very draining on your psyche dealing with that stuff day in and day out. So
you do get the best stories though. And you get a deeper understanding of the human body and the way things affect. If nothing else, let me just educate you a little bit on. Actually, you may already know this. I don't want to phrase it that way, but
go ahead.
Can I tell you a little bit about how alcoholism can affect the body and how that looks like later on?
Yeah, go ahead. As I take a drink of my Truly over here.
But essentially, alcohol withdrawal is one of the craziest things to see in the hospital. Like I had this one patient totally hallucinating, and there's degrees of restraints, for people. Like you can have chemical restraints, you can be physically tied down to the bed. There's this other thing called a posy bed though. And it's like a dog kennel for humans with a really soft netting. And it only works if they're super confused, right? Because you and I could get out of it.
Right.
But this lady is so off her rocker, completely confused. I'm giving her Ativan almost hourly, IV push to try and keep her sedated, but not under sedation, but calmed down. And I walk in and she has dug her fingernails into the netting enough that she ripped a hole. And she gets out of that bad boy. She's covered in urine and she's slippery wet. And she comes running down the hallway butt naked.
Oh my God.
Right? She runs into another patient's room.
This is the grossest story you've told.
Oh, dude, I got gross for days too. This is not even close to the grossest. But anyway, I go in and this lady has she walked into someone else's room, right? And she picked up their slipper. She's talking into it like it's a cell phone. And she's talking to the state troopers. And I'm holding her there against her will. And she's trying to call the cops on me into a slipper. It was hilarious. But
oh my God.
When you have long-term alcohol use and someone gets cirrhosis, so one of the things that the liver does for your body is it's a filter, right? So at any given time, 1/3 of your blood is in your liver. Well, when your liver can't filter appropriately, your proteins break down in the bloodstream and they turn into ammonia. And so then that ammonia is traveling in your bloodstream, right? So it goes to your brain. So they get something called metabolic encephalopathy or hepatic encephalopathy. And essentially it's just the ammonia is making it so you can't think clearly. And so they'll get delusions. And when you work in a nursing home, that's something you deal with a lot with people that used to drink heavily. And they have the craziest delusions. You have to give them this medication called lactulose, like a super laxative, and it binds to the ammonia and then you essentially poop it out, right? So you titrate by how confused they are, you make them poop less, right? And if they get more confused, you got to make them poop more. So you give them more of this stuff. I had this, my favorite patient was wheelchair bound. And I called her a pitter patterer, right? Because she couldn't move the wheels. She would pitter patter with her feet, but she couldn't stand up. And then this other patient who had cirrhosis would get these delusions, right? And she filed a complaint once that she had been abused. And so I had to go and listen to her story. And she goes in this long story about how she woke up in the middle of the night and this little pitter-patter patient, who wheelchair bound, had come into her room and stood up at the end of her bed And then the delusional patient said she stood up to try and make her leave, and she Spartan kicked her in the chest and knocked her down. And I was like, you had to have watched like 300 before you forgot to take your meds or something.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Man, dude, that's wild, man. I had to ask the question when you told me you were a trauma nurse for a while, and I was like, this guy's got to have some good stories. But I mean, not to get into the PTSD thing, but I would imagine that you're, in hunting and flying your birds, it's a nice release from that kind of stuff, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. It's I got into falconry working in the ER, and it was exactly that. The worst stories aren't the ones that make the worst cases aren't the ones that make good stories.
Yeah.
The ones that really bother you aren't the fun ones to talk about. And I mean, and where Seattle is it's a hot spot for human trafficking.
Yeah.
So we deal with a lot of sexual assault, and then unfortunately on minors. And so those you carry home with you and you never forget them. And it's hard to talk about those. So falconry's been a great way for me to take my mind off things and completely be able to step away from it and focus on something else. Because when I'm in the field with the hawk and the dogs, like, my phone doesn't exist. Like, that's why I'm actually not very great at posting on Facebook and Instagram. Like, half the time the party's over and I haven't even realized that I didn't press record yet. Like, I'm living in the moment. I'm not good at recording at all.
That's good, man.
But, it's a good release for me.
Yeah, that's great, man. So I think we asked you this already, but is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to cover?
No, this was great, man. Thank you guys for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks, man.
This is a great show, man. This is excellent.